The events begin with the young boys who stood at the apparatus with their fists clenched. Each of them was curious to see how many power points the machine would show after hitting it. When one of the boys hit it, the others noticed that it was a new record. They didn't expect to get this much out of this place, and they had never seen such a result. Another comrade was also very surprised and completely agreed with his friend. It was the first time he'd ever seen such a thing, and he thought it was impossible to beat out above average. They wondered if the ringleader of the first grade class of Kinso High School was definitely a human. The boy exclaimed that he was just very strong. Afterwards, he invited his friends for a drink in a cafe. The guys said no because they had to go to school tomorrow. There was no way to skip classes. The boys agreed on the main thing. After all, he has to live up to his status and go there every single day, even if he is half alive. They were about to leave, but then they heard a powerful blow behind them. The guys immediately turned their heads and noticed that some girl was standing near the machine. Everyone opened their mouths in amazement. The machine was completely broken, blown to pieces. Did the girl really do it? The boys exclaimed that it was like being struck by lightning. Their surprise was unparalleled, and the girl was gone. This machine gun incident was unbelievable. The boys had already gathered in the classroom. They couldn't stop thinking about how strong that girl Lee So-yeon was. Meanwhile, one of the guys whose name is Kim Woo-jun has already sent some high school kid flying. When the boy fell, hitting the wall with his back, Kim wondered if that was all he was capable of. He lived quietly and never lost. He thought everyone else was weak. He defeated everyone and was not afraid of anyone. This boy didn't care who he fought. Kim Woo-jun was recognized by everyone around him. It was said that he was the one who had beaten Kyo On-soo, a second-year student. There was no equal opponent left for him. At least he thought so. He noticed Seo-yeon's boys showing something. She was shown the magic of bending a spoon, which was indeed bent as if by a single glance. Seo-yeon smiled confidently and wondered if they called it magic. She rolled up her sleeves and promised to show something too. After that, the girl took that very spoon and squeezed it into one lump. That was her magic with the spoon. Kim Woo-jun still thought he was the strongest until he met a girl named Lee So-yeon. To think that among those he hadn't fought remained such a strong opponent. The boy was filled with great excitement. He wanted to fight her by all means. He even sat at the same desk with her, never stopping to think about challenging her to a fight. Lee So-yeon, although she is a girl, she has great strength. He couldn't stop watching her. She must be one of the few strong people in the neighborhood. Whatever it takes to get there, he's sure to want to fight her once. Kim Woo-jun couldn't stop thinking and planning how to challenge this girl to a fight. Then he heard someone talking. He froze, listening to what the guys were talking about. One of them said they were going to have gym class with the girls. I wonder if they're going to play dodgeball with them. The boy replied that he would. Boys versus girls. That's why he advised Shi Leok to get ready. They can't hit the dirt in front of them. Kim Woo-jun rejoiced. After all, as much as he hadn't planned a fight with this girl, he hadn't been able to come up with anything. He told the girl that she had better prepare herself properly. Lee Seo-yeon glanced at him without the slightest bit of resentment. He threatened to blow her to smithereens in the dodgeballs, and now they were gathered on the court. Coach had the ball in his hands, and with a whistle in his teeth, he warned the boys about the start of the game. He threw the ball to the boys and instructed them to play on their own, but asked them to be as careful as possible, and so the team rushed forward. They had already divided into several teams. It was boys against girls. One of the guys smiled caustically and warned the girls that they had no intention of giving in to them, so those who are really scared can give up or leave the site right away. One of the boys had already thrown the ball toward the others and ran as fast as he could. He exclaimed that he wouldn't lose in this game, but Lee So-yeon's girlfriend instantly dodged that punch. Kim Woo-jun thought about how it would be quite boring if he finished so quickly. He just had to win. And then it was the girl's turn. She took the ball in one hand and raised it as high as she could. She threw the ball toward the boy, but the boy was able to dodge it as well. The ball was in his hands now. He wanted to beat her at any cost. It was a hilarious fight. They were both out of breath. Kim Woo-jun was completely wet with sweat. Lee So-yeon was also barely breathing. The whole team was already lying on the floor with their tongues at their sides. The kid decided that this girl was holding up pretty well. This girl was really stronger than anyone he'd ever met. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that it didn't matter how strong she was, but the fact that she's a girl remains a fact. And so taking the ball in his hands once again, the boy raised it up and threw it forward again. If she could take it, the ball went straight into the girl's stomach, so much so that she started flying backwards. She was in pain as the ball hit her right under her chest. Lee Seo-yeon found herself several meters behind. The boy exclaimed that he had a direct hit, but he was afraid for the girl, and inquired if she was okay. Lee So-yeon was standing in a standing position. She had very powerful muscles. She grabbed that ball when it first touched her belly and held it tightly in her hands. She clutched onto the ball as hard as she could and bounced back a few meters without falling. Kim Woo-jun, of course, didn't expect this. He clenched his fists, originally thinking that he had already won, but it didn't. He couldn't believe his eyes. This girl has such an intimidating aura. They both turned toward the school. I think the bell had already rung. Kim Woo-jun thought to himself that this was how it would end. They didn't know who was the stronger of the two, and so the school day came to an end. The teacher said goodbye to his students. He asked the students to go home and not to play too much because they needed to study hard. Kim Woo-jun admitted to himself that he had underestimated Lee So-yeon. Today unfortunately ended in a draw. But next time it'll be different, someone called out to him. It was Lee So-yeon. She asked if he lived in the apartment. He asked what about it. The girl wanted to go along with him. Explaining that she needed to talk to him about something, Kim Woo-jun agreed. Apparently the girl was eager to fight too. On the way out, she asked him to end it once and for all, and so they walked in silence. This silence made him very uneasy. Lee So-yeon was walking in front and the boy was dragging behind her. He kicked an empty juice can on the pavement out of boredom. Kim Woo-jun asked her why she was silent all the time. The girl didn't answer him. The boy became angry and asked what she wanted to talk to him about. He asked her to speak sooner, not to be silent. Lee So-yeon looked at him strangely, whereupon she exclaimed that she would ask him directly whether he liked her. It was certainly a killer question on the girl's part. Kim Woo-jun didn't expect such a thing. He immediately turned in her direction and shouted what the hell was she even talking about. Lee So-yeon explained that he was staring at her so intently. It was also an incident in gym class, so she thought so. She asked me to stop looking at her like that then. It's really very stressful. And what he's doing to her, why he's doing it in the first place. The boy thought for a moment. He couldn't just tell her that he saw her as an enemy and wanted to get rid of her. She wondered if Kim was looking at her like that because she wanted to fight. She hoped that wasn't the case. Lee So-yeon mumbled that even if he didn't have anyone to fight, wanting to fight a girl who was even a little smaller than him was too disgusting. Could he really be up to something like this? A man's voice sounded behind them. The man asked his daughter if her lessons were over. They both turned around at his voice. Lee So-yeon was surprised to see her father. Kim Woo-jun also didn't expect such a bulky man to appear in front of them. This man was really big. He looked like some kind of monster. Kim Woo-jun wondered if the bulky man was the girl's father. Is he really a human being? And then he remembered to say hello to the man. The boy bent down in front of the man to say hello. The man immediately asked his little sister who the guy in front of him was. Kim Woo-jun couldn't understand anything. He thought it was the girl's father, but it was her brother. The man said hello back to the boy, calling him baby. Kim, of course, did not like being called baby. He asked the boy if he was a friend of Lee So-yeon. After all, this was the first time he was seeing him. He didn't know she had such a little friend. The man laughed. He asked why Kim was trying to stay away from them. She must be afraid. The man exclaimed that he was a very funny man. He said he was going to die of laughter. The boy smiled back and thought it was a strange family. Lee So-yeon is also strange like her brother. She stared at the boy with the backpack behind him. My brother looked like a huge angry monster. He was pumped up and formidable. A man like that would terrify any passerby, much less a boy. Another big man appeared nearby. He threw his piercing gaze at the boy and roared like a beast. Surprised that Kim Woo-jun is So-yeon's friend, he called him a very small dreamer. The man couldn't stop laughing at the boy. Kim Woo-jun concluded that this family looked like some kind of monsters. A man appeared behind the boy and asked what the yellow color of his hair was and called him a yellow-headed anchovy. After all, according to the school rules, they probably aren't allowed to wear colored hair. Kim asked if it wasn't his business what color to wear. The big guy exclaimed that he has no respect for his father at all. Even though he is older, he can't stand it. The boy asked his father not to stop him. The boy asked the man not to talk nonsense. After all, he's still a boy. It's clear which one of them is the older. Lee So-yeon asked Lee Han-byul how many times she told him not to wear his school uniform. No one sees him as a middle school student, right? Still, no one believes Han-byul is from middle school even when he's in uniform. It's not like he's a middle school student. Why are they doing this to him? Lee Han-byul, 14 years old, a middle school sophomore. The second man immediately laughed loudly. His eyes glittered with an eerie, evil gleam. The man laughed at how he could answer him and yell at Han-byul. It's really quite interesting. Ordinary people faint just by meeting their gaze. Compared to the petite body, the man noticed that the boy had great willpower. He likes a kid like him. It looks like the boy knows how to fight. Lee So-yeon said he does. He's one of the leaders of their school. The men immediately clenched their teeth and looked at the boy with a wild gleam in their eyes. Kim Woo-jun opened his mouth and couldn't figure out how to behave in such a situation. They said that to think that a yellow-headed man could be the leader. Any passing dog would laugh when he heard that. The man asked his father to stop, for the boy was about to cry. All they did was laugh at him. The girl asked them to stop laughing because he really is the head in their school. She fully realizes that any dog would die laughing if you told them that such a crazy pervert, looking at girls from the sidelines and dressing like a hooligan despite his skinny body, is the ringleader. Even so, she feels sorry for him when they mock him so openly. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he would never forget this shame, after which the boy ran away, and there in front of us was a huge high-rise building. The sun's rays hit the open windows. Lee So-yeon and his father walked into the room. The man exclaimed that he was very hungry and immediately laughed. They were greeted by some huge woman with big muscles. She asked them to come in quickly and explained that there was curry for dinner tonight. They both got very excited. Lee So-yeon jumped up and down when she heard about dinner. The woman laughed as menacingly as they did and told them to go quickly to shower, change, and eat. The food was already on the table, alluring with its beautiful bright aroma. The men gathered for the meal. The girl also sat down nearby and everyone wished each other a pleasant appetite. Lee So-yeon asked if she was the only one seeing only chicken breast, vegetables, and tofu. The girl wondered where the rice went. The boy began to chew his food and exclaimed that there was nothing good about these beehives. Then he laughed again. The girl corrected him, explaining that it should say carbs, and called him an idiot. That's when they asked her what was wrong with her hands. Lee So-yeon asked why they were asking what was wrong with her hands. The man looking at the girl's hands began to laugh, after which he exclaimed that her arms were too thin, and asked her not to spit. The others said that their sister was all skin and bones, so much so that sometimes he wondered how she moved at all. Laughter could be heard throughout the kitchen. The other man asked what was wrong with them. He smiled and said that girls should be a little thin. Lee So-yeon thought about her being a normal type. The man exclaimed that he wanted to ask something else. He inquired about the girl's relationship with that yellow-headed anchovy. Lee So-yeon mumbled as he laughed again. She told him that he was really the leader. The man laughed again and replied that it was just funny. Meanwhile, that boy's sister, Kim Woo-jun, opened the door to his room and called for food. But before she could finish her sentence, she saw her brother lying face down on the bed. She wondered if he was crying. The boy asked the girl to leave. She exclaimed that he didn't cry even when he lost the fight. What's this about? Does it have something to do with the girl? But the boy continued to lie silently tucked into his pillow. He was really too upset. The sister said she too had a painful first love at 17. The older sister understands how he feels. But of course she didn't snot quietly into her pillow like some people. Kim Woo-jun turned around and started yelling at her. Does she think that's supposed to comfort him? He asked her to go eat something better. Lee So-yeon in turn thought about what kind of relationship she and Woo-jun have. It's just that they're in the same desk in class. The man wondered if she was hanging out with a guy who looked like a bully. I think they were coming home from school together today. Had she really fallen in love with him? The girl cringed and wondered what he was even talking about. Nothing of the sort from what he'd said. Then the man decided to play the game of choice. He and the yellow-haired anchovy fell into the water. Whichever sister saves first. Then the girl began to think about it. After all, she had been given such a riddle. She imagined if they had both fallen into the water, and floundering there trying to escape. But a different picture rose up before her. It's like they're splashing around in there, but they're not trying to get out. They're trying to fight. The boy runs after the formidable big man, and the man in turn says goodbye to him. His eyes burn with an eerie firelight, like lightning bolts tearing the boy apart. Kim Woo-jun looks fearfully at this man-monster, and screams that she sees a monster in front of her. After imagining such a picture, the girl replied to her brother that her first priority would be to save Kim Woo-jun, of course. The brother concluded that she had fallen in love with the yellow-haired anchovy. The other exclaimed that even he in her place would have saved the anchovy. The father asked the girl's brother to stop talking nonsense and go eat already. After all, Lee So-yeon said that there was nothing like that. Meanwhile, it was already dark outside. The bright street lamps were burning. Kim Woo-jun was walking down the street thinking about how he could deal with Lee So-yeon, so that rumors would spread about her, the hallmark of a real man. He doesn't know the word surrender, how to fight her. It's not very nice to tell her that directly, asking her if she'll fight him to the death. It's kind of idiotic, though. As the kid wandered down the street, he couldn't figure out what to do in this situation. At this time, Kim Woo-jun came across one picture. A man was standing in front of a girl telling her that he liked her, and asking her if he was really that bad. The boy wondered what was going on there. The girl was asking the man if he was ashamed. How could one behave like this in the middle of the street after being rejected by Hube, being a high school student? He doesn't seem to be ashamed at all because he's too drunk, but she's burning with shame. Apparently he didn't fully understand her rejection last time, so she repeats it again properly so he understands. He's not her type, and she doesn't want to date him. The girl's look was not at all pleasant. It was as if she had seen something disgusting. The man exclaimed that he would make sure the girl couldn't even raise her eyes in his direction again. Kim Woo-jun noticed that it was too noisy outside. The man was being too brazen and manly with the girl. Kim flew as close to him as she could and brought the man to the ground with a powerful punch. The girl didn't expect this. The boy stood up for her, picking a fight with the insolent man. He fell to the ground, drops of scarlet blood spurting from his mouth. He coughed. Isn't he ashamed to be doing that on the street? He's such a scumbag. The boy called him a total wuss and added that he was too bored. Just as he thought, she was the only one who could generate interest. Only Lee Seo-yeon. Everyone else is just a weakling. The girl he had just rescued smiled sweetly. She was very happy, and as she approached the boy, she exclaimed that he had helped her again. Looks like he's still got the same temper. Raising her eyes to the boy, she mumbled that it had been a long time since they had seen each other, and pulled her hand toward the boy. But Kim Woo-jun stood there silently looking at her with a scornful gaze. The girl didn't stop reaching out to him. He couldn't remember who the girl was. It was a benevolent gesture on her part. The girl continued to smile. Kim Woo-jun tried to remember who she was. He decided to do a little research. Memories from 16 years of his life began to fly by in his head. There definitely had to be something that pointed to this girl, but he couldn't remember anything. The girl noticed that the boy had grown a lot. They were almost the same height in junior high school. Kim replied that she had grown too. He didn't even recognize her and laughed. It turned out that she was his classmate from junior high school. He noticed that she was wearing a Kunso High School uniform. It looked like they were going to see each other a lot from now on. Kim explained that he was in class number 3. He asked her to drop by once in a while. Then he said he still had important things to do and said goodbye. If they talk anymore, it might turn out he's forgotten who she is. So it was time to get out of here. The girl asked him if he was going to go to an important business like this. He replied that even if he did, no one would say anything. She said that in that case, it was not that important. It was the first time they'd met in a long time. I wondered if he was going to shake her hand in return. The boy exclaimed that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. He was pleased to see them. The girl's face changed after shaking hands. She blushed a little, apparently embarrassed. The girl replied that it was nice to see you too. After that, they finally unclasped their hands. Meanwhile, the class was talking about what had happened yesterday. One of the students asked what had happened that was so interesting. There was talk of Kim Woo-jun breaking Dong Seok-hyun's nose since 3rd grade in high school, but it's only been a short time since he entered high school, and he's already gotten into fights with a bunch of people. The students marveled at the kid. They gathered to see who had come. There was a girl standing in the doorway. She apologized and asked if Kim Woo-jun was in this class. The classmates immediately pointed in the boy's direction. The girl thanked the guys. They were curious who this beauty was. One of the guys replied that it was Oh Se-ho from class number 1, the queen of Kanzo High School. The girl walked up to Kim and said hello. She said that she didn't thank him properly yesterday, and handed him the chocolate milk he likes. Kim replied that there was nothing to thank him for. He did it because he was disgusted with that guy's behavior. He thanked the girl for the milk. She asked what he had been doing. The boy replied that he was just thinking about stuff. Meanwhile, Lee Seo-yeon was sitting at the other desk. She pretended to take notes while she listened to the conversation. Kim Woo-jun remembered, simulating various fights. He remembered yesterday's fight with Lee So-yeon. The talk in class was that Kim Woo-jun has been looking at Lee So-yeon all the time lately. Maybe he's in love. Oh Se-ho immediately turned her head towards the girl. She thought it was Lee Seo-yeon. The girl felt as if another piercing gaze was burning through her. She began to clutch the pen in her hands, breaking it, mentally asking her not to look at it. After all, she couldn't study like that. The girl asked the boy to give her his hand. When asked why, she explained to him practically. Holding out their hands to each other, it was like they high-fived each other, slapping their hand on their arm, after which they put 2 fingers together and touched hand to hand, making funny noises. And at the end, they clenched their fists and joined together. Fist to fist, it was a friendly gesture. The boy was explaining to the girl that this is how he greets his friends. Now they do too. He asked me to always say hello like that from now on. It was kind of childish. But even so, Oh Se-ho remembered everything perfectly. It was like it was just a short time ago. The girl sat on the step a little bored, and remembering her childhood. She felt a little offended. Meanwhile, Kim Woo-jun was doing pull-ups on the bar next to the strong man Lee So-yeon. The girl pulled up, smiled, and wondered if he was taking a sweat shower. He was so cocky, but it turned out to be no big deal. Lee. So Yan asked him if it was too hard for him to just take a rest. The boy explained that when he works out, he always sweats a lot. The girl laughed. He capitulated, trying to make up nonsense that no one would even believe. Kim Woo-jun thought to himself that this girl was sassy. After that, the boy climbed up on the bar, doing a strength exercise. He asked Lee So-yeon if she could do the same. The girl was very surprised and thought that she had never done such a thing. Kim Woo-jun was laughing with her now, noticing that even she couldn't do such a thing. The girl began to try her best to show him that she could do this too. He was really annoying her. The boy watched her agonize, but the girl was having none of it. Oh-seho, for her part, continued to sit on the steps, thinking about something and getting bored. The windows in the gym were transparent, and she could see everything, all of Kim Woo-jun's workouts, next to the girl Lee So-yeon. She was a little unsure what he could possibly like about this girl. Too muscular, like a man, a little goofy-looking. That's what Oh-seho thought sitting on the steps about these guys. She shifted her eyebrows to her nose, unable to stop thinking. There's a little store in front of us. It's been open for a long time, offering various goods to customers. Oh-seho walked up to the bar. The kid behind the bar said hello to her. The girl walked over to a shelf and reached for some kind of juice can. Suddenly, Lee So-yeon walked up to the shelf. They looked at each other, not expecting to run into each other here. They continued to stare at each other with a scornful look, but Oh-seho smiled and said hello. She said she hadn't expected to meet her here. The girl asked if she was a friend of Woo-jun's and explained that she had often seen them together. She introduced herself to her. Lee So-yeon asked Oh-seho if she would drink that soda. The girl smiled again and replied that she could drink it if she wanted. She decided to give in. Lee So-yeon was somehow surprised by her kindness. She looked at her with a questioning look. When the girls bought what they wanted at the store, they went outside together. Lee So-yeon drank the water from the can. She happily exclaimed that it was the best soda she had ever had. Oh-seho bought herself a juice. When she opened it, she asked the girl if she was dating Kim Woo-jun, as if nothing had happened. Lee So-yeon almost choked. The soda poured out of her mouth. It was a strange reaction. She exclaimed that of course they weren't dating, and she thought that Oh-seho had said the wrong thing. Lee So-yeon asked the girl who would like someone like that boy. He dyed his hair blonde like he wanted attention, and he talks like he's always trying to make himself sound like something he doesn't understand. He's also really annoying. Saying that, the girl clenched her fist. A man suddenly appeared in front of them. He blocked their way. Then I asked him where the pissed-off kid was. He was very angry. The girls stared at him with questioning eyes. They couldn't understand where he'd come from. Lee So-yeon screamed and clutched her soda can. She crushed it with one hand. The guy started yelling at them and asked the girl to shut up. She immediately obeyed him. Oh-seho was scared shitless and thought about why this guy kept showing up. He's just a headache. She remembered how Kim Woo-jun had dealt with that guy just a short time ago for her, and asked the kid if he was looking for Kim Woo-jung to get revenge for yesterday. He said he was. That bastard broke his nose. I mean, she's close to this guy. He said to tell him while he's asking nicely where he is. He will only stop being mad if he finishes this brat off. Oh-seho replied that she doesn't know where he is. If she did, she wouldn't tell him. And why is he doing this to her? Doesn't he have any shame? The guy asked if she really didn't know where he was. If that's the case, we need to make him come. She knows what will happen if she makes him more angry. He asked me to call Kim Woo-jun over here right away. There's no one to protect her today, so she should listen to him if she didn't want to die. But the girl said no. At that time, Lee So-yeon suddenly stood between them. She raised her hands in the air. Oh-seho was very surprised at this gesture from the girl. She smiled sweetly and turned to the guy. The girl mumbled that she didn't know what was wrong, but she asked him to stop immediately. She's 100% aware of how annoying Kim Woo-jun is, but it has nothing to do with them after all. The girl asked him to just look for Kim Woo-jun's school tomorrow, and that would be the end of it. The guy exclaimed that he should finish him off today, and she's telling him something about tomorrow. Probably wants to die too. He put his hand on her head. Lee So-yeon asked him nicely to take his hand away. The girl laughed caustically, and the guy replied that he didn't want to take his hand off her head. She had a complete change of face. He must have really pissed her off. She decided to deal with him differently in this case. The girl tried to swing away from his hand. Oh-seho was very worried about her and started screaming. After that, he grabbed the girl's hair with his hand and asked Oh-seho if she wanted to call that boy, if she didn't want to see that girl die. When Lee So-yeon mumbled something, the guy asked her to repeat it. He wasn't going to let go of his hand from her hair. Lee So-yeon briefly elbowed him in the chest as hard as she could. He didn't know who he was messing with yet. The girl mumbled that she's trying to be polite here since he's Sunbae. Well, he's bound to piss the man off. Maybe just go ahead and finish him off? She explained to the guy that that was exactly what she wanted to say. He remained sitting on his knees on the pavement. Oseho opened her mouth in amazement at what was happening. Meanwhile, let's go back 10 years. The man asked his favorite children to listen carefully. Lee Seo-yan was 6 years old at the time. There are many dangers in this world. Various harassment, atrocious crimes, terrorism, zombies, and demons. It's impossible to even count. The father explained to his children that of course he would protect them from all dangers, but the moment would come and they would inevitably face the dangers alone. The girl's brother was 4 years old at the time. Therefore, it is necessary to prepare so that when that day comes, they will be able to protect themselves on their own. From that point on, their father began teaching them the most basic and very basic self-defense and techniques. He asked his children not to worry as they would be able to defend themselves if anything happened. Sunbae rose to his feet and called the girl a lousy girl. The father at that point explained to the children that these techniques would not be too difficult for them. Oseho notices that Lee So-yan has dodged all the blows, and so fast that she can't follow the movements. The girl was really dodging also as fast as a snake. Sunbae's face was a little wrinkled. The guy was really angry. He couldn't understand how this girl had so much power and energy. The next kick flew straight into his body. The girl called him a wuss, whereupon a kick flew straight at his head. She exclaimed that she now understood exactly how he was able to get that puny guy, Kim Woo-jun. Sunbae didn't have time to dodge her blows. He couldn't understand what kind of monster this girl was. Lee Seo-yan's next punch flew right into his face. The kid flipped over and fell on the hard asphalt. It was an incredible sight. The girl did her thing in self-defense. People walked by and noticed something was going on. Apparently this fight. Isn't this the uniform of Gyunso High School? Lee Seo-yan instantly took the girl's hand, and she ran as fast as she could. She told her to run away immediately. That was quite a surprise. Oseho was even more surprised. It had been a long time since she had run this fast, but there was nothing she could do in this case. She had to listen to Lee Seo-yan, so they ran across the street together. When they finally stopped, Oseho couldn't catch her breath. Lee Seo-yan asked her if she was okay. Oseho replied that her heart was about to jump out. Lee So-yan saved her, and the girl wondered why she helped her. It had nothing to do with her. She didn't even get slapped. She could have just run away. What if others stronger than Sunbae target her? Lee So-yan remembered how her father used to train her. The training was very long and hilarious. The girl, being a child, didn't want to do it very much. She was very tired and cried that it was too hard. Her father asked her to look at her brother Han Biol. Even though he's younger than her, he's trying his best, and what about his exclamations during the punch? Her father explained to Seo-yan that it was not only a skill for her own protection, but also a skill that could protect the people around her. Later, when her father becomes senile, she will be able to protect her friends, her lover, and others from danger. Her father explained that this is the kind of person who is truly strong and tough, and to become that kind of person, she needed to exercise and build strength. Apparently, it was time to act cool. Lee So-yan told Oseho that it looked like she was in a sticky situation, so she just couldn't ignore it, and let the stronger Sunbae come after her if they want her so badly. Sunbae was very surprised at this girl. Lee So-yan clenched her fists and exclaimed that she was still the strongest. Oseho thought to herself, this girl is really cool. So Woo-jun just fell in love with her for no reason, even though she said she wasn't interested in him. Afterwards, the girl apologized and said that she must have been worried for nothing. As long as Woo-jun is interested in her, she's her #1 enemy. Sohei adds that Lee So-yan is really cool, but even so, she can't do otherwise. The girl thanked her and said that she would never forget it. After all, she does like her a little bit, but because of that boy, she can't help herself. That's how grateful she was for the help. One of the guys, meanwhile, approached Sunbae and asked him to stop smoking. He explained that their Dong-seok was the main character in all the conversations lately. The guy asked him to shut up, but he kept asking what his name was. Kim Woo-jun, I think, from freshman year. He got it from him, and now he got it from a girl, too. Rumor has it that he even fainted. The boy laughed at Sunbae openly. Sunbae told him that the rumor that he was beaten up by a girl was just a rumor. He said that he didn't deny that Kim Woo-jun beat him up. Sunbae asked him to shut up sooner rather than later. It seems like Kim Woo-jun is strong. He's been fighting with everyone lately. He also got it from him so hard. The guy started laughing with him again. Sunbae wondered what it was he was trying to say. Why had he called him over to taunt him? Guy replied that he would catch that lousy Kim Woo-jun. It's been too noisy lately. Since he came to their school, the atmosphere has gotten kind of hectic. Among the guys who received from him are his friends from other schools, and most importantly, he can't ignore that some kid is walking around school behaving as he wishes. He's so angry he can't concentrate on his studies. At least for the sake of getting into university, he'll catch and teach that bastard Kim Woo-jun a lesson. That's the guy Yang Soo-hyun talking. He's the third-year head of Junseo High School. Kim Woo-jun, meanwhile, was walking to school in the morning with his briefcase on his shoulders and his hands in his pockets. Walking into the room, he began to yawn. He was so sleepy. The boy had not slept at all. Just then, someone called him behind his back, calling him a thug. Kim told him to shut up. It was Sung Shi-hyun, Woo-jun's best friend, the first year of Junseo High School. He told Kim that Hyung Nim was already on top of things. The boy asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Then the friend explained that Lee Seo-yeon is from his class. He knows he's head over heels in love with her. Isn't it too obvious he's showing his interest in her, staring at her every day? And even the fact that he's always provoking her, that's also a sign of affection. But not that a girl would naturally dislike even a guy if trying to get close in this way. Kim replied that it was none of his business whether she liked him or not. Song Shi-hyun asked if he really liked her. Kim Woo-jun replied that he really liked her, only it's not her. It's her power, which is probably greater than his. That's what this is all about. The boy exclaimed that he would like to show her his superiority in a duel. But he, Kim Woo-jun, is a guy who doesn't hit girls. Now with a simple competition, he's testing how strong this girl is. And he's already found out that they're pretty much on par. However, in battle, winning and losing do not depend on strength alone. With his professional dynamic vision and speed, he would prove himself superior to Lee So-yeon. The kid in anticipation was telling Lee So-yeon to wait. After all, he's going to come out victorious. The girl was just asking Suki what they were having for lunch today. Suki thoughtfully replied that she didn't know, so she decided to Google it. Soybean paste soup with strawberry cream, melon kimchi, rice. They laughed and decided they'd better go to the buffet, and so they headed amicably to the cafeteria, where there were already many students in line. The girls exclaimed that they were late. Suki wondered what they would do now. Would they have to starve now? Sunbae was there. He called the students rabid, hungry rookies. But to Kudong-sak, a veteran with 3 years of experience, it was nothing. Would just walk and eat at the canteen. Couldn't buy much because of the crowds. Well, at least he got his favorite chocolate bun and popcorn. Lee So-yeon was standing right in front of him. She asked him to give him a bite of the bun, and then she thanked him. And she said she'd just asked for a bite and he'd given it all to her. She thought he was just garbage, but it turns out he can be useful. It's kind of small for her stomach. Lee. So-yeon asked why he peed his pants. It's not like she forcibly took the bun away from him, the girl exclaimed as she left that one bun wasn't enough for 2 people. Soo-hee asked what her relationship was with that Sunbae. He looked like a scary guy. The girl replied that there was nothing special about him. Kim Woo-jun sat in front of them. He asked Lee So-yeon if she had had enough of some bun. He had something tasty in his hands. The boy offered the girl if she was hungry he could share. Lee So-yeon was very hungry. When she saw this delicious treat, she immediately became sad. Kim Woo-jun told her that he would only share if she defeated him in a fight. Lee So-yeon said that she didn't like violence, but there was nothing she could do about it. So she asked the yellow-haired anchovy to attack her. Kim Woo-jun asked the girl to take her time like that. He had already decided how they would compete. The girl stood across from him with 4 eyes wide open. That was news. Meanwhile, the students were wherever they were. Some walked down the corridor, some went to their lockers. Class hadn't started yet. It was recess. Some unknown guy was walking around the school. He looked cautiously into every classroom. Then when he saw the kids from school, he asked if Kim Woo-jun was in 3rd grade. A blonde kid like that. He was answered that he was quite right. The boy thanked the students and started to open the door. The kid, meanwhile, was already entering the classroom. He was looking for Kim Woo-jun. He looked at his hand while thinking about something. The boy was in the classroom. He saw the boy and waved at him. He noticed the blonde hair and the mole under his eye. He also noticed the piercing. So it's definitely Kim Woo-jun. But he wondered what it was they were doing here. Kim asked back, wondering if he couldn't see for himself. Kim Woo-jun and Lee So-yeon. They have a deadly battle. Table tennis with flip-flops. The kid saw that and laughed. That was nice of him. After that, the smile disappeared from his face. The boy mumbled that he hadn't come to play with him. He crushed the ball with 2 fingers. He explained that he needed to talk to him and asked to follow him. Lee So-yeon asked about the ball. Kim Woo-jun replied to the girl that he assumed that and stole another ball from the gym teacher. The girl laughed. noting that he had a cool background. She wondered what their count was. It was 11, 9. He had 11. The guy who came in asked him not to pour. He thought Kim Woo-jun wanted to die. The boy headed in their direction and walked over to the table. He made a sudden movement with his foot, knocking the table over. Afterward, when Kim Woo-jun threw a ball with 2 fingers, the guy batted it away with 1 elbow strike. That ball flew into the open window. That was an unexpected twist. The boy kept up with him. He kept asking me to follow him. He asked me to stop playing fucking table tennis. Kim Woo-jun was really angry. He couldn't understand what was going on. This guy was pissing him off more and more. He thought the kid was just kidding, so he got another ball. But then he got hit in the side. Lee So-yeon opened her mouth in surprise. She asked the guys to calm down soon. The guy wouldn't relent and asked Kim to talk in this case right here. Does he really think the world revolves around him? There is a limit to how much he can tolerate his behavior, but Kim Woo-jun only laughed in response. He turned to the kid and said there didn't seem to be anything special about the fists of a third-year head. He hadn't really expected any of this. The kid was wiping his cheek after the blow. Lee So-yeon began to greedily eat the popcorn. When everyone reached for their food, she asked them to back off. Kim Woo-jun mumbled that if he annoyed the guy so much, he could definitely fight him. Events that happened a little earlier. When Sunbae asked this guy if he was going to teach Kim Woo-jun a lesson, he asked how he was going to do it, and the guy told him he'd heard he only fights strong guys. I'm sure he's heard rumors about him, so naturally he'd be all for it. He said he'd quietly talk to Kim Woo-jung tomorrow and challenge him to a fight. When asked why he couldn't today, he said that today was a practice exam. Sunbae asked why he would do such a thing. The boy replied that it was to study at least a little. He explained to Sunbae that there would be negotiations tomorrow. Quiet negotiations as much as possible, as intellectuals are supposed to do. Well, of course, it wasn't exactly quiet of him to swing his legs indoors, or elbowing balls. He certainly surprised Kim Woo-jun and everyone else. It's not like a ball went out the window. The kid did it as quietly as possible. He was very calm. Then he called Kim Woo-jun to talk to him, and asked him to stop playing fucking tennis. Everyone wondered where that intellectual had gone in the end. He said he would solve everything quietly, but he made a lot of noise. The girls noticed that Sunbae, who had been watching, must have pissed himself. The other one said he was her future boyfriend. The girls started fighting and then called each other names. The guy laughed and said that Sunbae had been atrocious for 3 years, and Kim hadn't even moved. So the kid wants to fight him. Scratching the back of his head, he agreed, and mumbled what he was going to suggest first anyway. He asked Kim to run to the wasteland after school, and added that he would make a man out of him today. The guy called Kim's name and headed for the exit. Today's day of school was over. By evening, the school was completely empty. Kim Woo-jun walked outside with his briefcase on his shoulders. He walked thoughtfully. His friend stopped in front of him as if blocking his way. He asked if Kim was really going to fight Soo-hyun-hyung. Kim Woo-jun asked how he heard about it. The guy explained that rumors were already flying everywhere. The head of the 3rd year came to the head of the 1st year and scored an arrow. He asked his friend to just apologize and leave. Otherwise, he would really get in trouble. Kim asked his comrade not to talk nonsense. A friend asked if he even knew who this Hyung guy was. He's really something. Kim chuckled and asked who he was. The guy asked if he knew that 2 years ago, everyone knew about Gyeonso High School because it was only attended by hardcore bullies. Young Soo-hyun was exactly the kind of monster who dealt with all of them because they were interfering with his studies. Although at that time, most of the outstanding strongmen of the neighborhood were studying at Gyeonso High School. He had just cleared the school of bullies, and then suddenly Kim showed up and stirred up the school's atmosphere again. Yang Soo-hyun won't just let it go. Even if it's him, it's better to give in this time. Kim responded by saying no. He was glad about what his friend had just told him. If he is so strong, he wants to fight him even more. After all, he only fights the strongest. That phrase was like Lee Seo-yeon's favorite phrase. There's a reason they want to fight. The girl laughed at the yellow-haired anchovy, calling him cocky, asked her friend if that wasn't funny. Kim Woo-jun saw Lee So-yeon. He told her that since she came to watch, she should come over. He's going to go to the wasteland to fight Yang Soo-hyun. He asked the girl to properly observe what level her opponent was. The kid's friend looked at him like he was sick. Who's his opponent here? The time was nearing evening. It was slowly getting dark. Kim Woo-jun approached the boys. He noticed it was crowded. I wonder if he'd decided to take him on in numbers. The guy said not to be afraid. They were all just spectators anyway. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that these guys seemed too familiar to him. What about their eyes? They all stood waiting to see who would be the strongest in this fight. They all stared at the boy with fear in their eyes. It was like they knew what kind of opponent Kim Woo-jun had. Did they have that image once upon a time? The boy wondered what had happened to them after all. The guy who asked Kim to come to the vacant lot said he was 3 minutes late. Maybe we should really kill him. Like he doesn't know that time is precious to the graduating class. Kim wondered if those onlookers had originally looked any different, whether it was his doing. The guy replied that it was. He got them back on the right track. He explained to the kid that he was about to become one too. Kim decided there was no way he could lose in this case. He asked me to stop talking. After all, the guy had said himself that senior class time was worth its weight in gold. He's giving him a chance to strike first. The boy was very squishy on the outside, but he agreed with Kim and exclaimed that it was indeed time to begin. He removed the glasses from his eyes with one hand. Kim Woo-jun wondered if he had already had time to stretch his body. He tossed his briefcase to the ground and headed toward his opponent. The guy replied that he didn't need it one bit to fight someone like him. All he knows how to do is fraternize. Kim Woo-jun rushed towards the enemy. He didn't sit idly by. He clenched his fists and threw himself at the boy. Kim Woo-jun decided to do a leg kick. The guy ducked in response and tried to hit him in the face with a strong arm swing. The spectators rejoiced that the battle had finally begun. One of them said that even though he was trying his best, he too would soon be reborn as a good student like them. The other one noticed that he had a very fierce look in his eyes. Well, this idiot can only give that look until today. They recognized the tenacity of this guy Kim Woo-jun coming out against Soo-hyun. But soon Soo-hyun would show him that you can't survive in this world with just one tenacity. Once Soo-hyun took over this school, bad behavior is forbidden. If he doesn't like this system, he has to defeat Soo-hyun. But of course, that's impossible. Kim Woo-jun asked the battle what they were even carrying, and jumped up to deliver another blow to the opponent. Jumping up, he did a spin with his foot and tried to kick him in the face. The guy retaliated with a hand defense, but still, something incredible happened. He was able to land a successful punch on Soo-hyun. The guys behind the guy started shouting at Kim Woo-jun not to give up. They asked him to win, to finish off that nerdy dictator and lead Gyunso. The nerd looked at these guys and exclaimed that he remembered their faces. The guys who were shouting to Kim immediately fell silent. The nerd threw a scornful, vindictive glare at them. Kim noticed Lee Seo-yeon. He said that if she was here to watch too, let her come over. He told her that time that he was going to go to the wasteland to fight young Soo-hyun. He asked her to observe properly what level her opponent was. At that moment, the girls were left standing silent, wondering what the kid had said. He remembered the words of a friend who said that rumors were already flying everywhere. The head of the third year came to the head of the first year and scored an arrow. A fight between a first-year chapter and a third-year chapter. Lee Seo-yeon was just thinking about it, remembering how Kim Woo-jun had invited her to watch the fight. The girl wondered if Kim Woo-jun was strong. He's a yellow-haired anchovy. That was the image of Woo-jun in the girl's mind. The guys, of course, say things like he's a strong man, the strongest first-year head and stuff like that. They heard that even the second-year head lost to him, but she's still never once seen Woo-jun fight. In her eyes, he's just a yellow-haired anchovy. And son by Soo-hyun, he didn't look particularly strong either, especially when he asked her to stop playing fucking table tennis. Of course she's curious. The friend asks the girl if she's really going to go watch. Lee So-yeon replied to her friend that they would go together. She was a little scared, though. Lee So-yeon asked the girl not to be afraid. After all, such deviant behavior was quite normal. My friend got a little angry. After all, deviant behavior is a stable behavior of an individual that deviates from generally accepted, most common, and established social norms. Suddenly, Oh Seho appeared behind Lee Seo-young's back. She exclaimed while hugging the girl's shoulders that she was going too. Lee So-yeon was very surprised by the girl's appearance and inquired when she came. Oh Seho asked why they were so surprised. I was just coming from school and saw them. They're coming to see Woo-jun fight too. The girls didn't expect that she liked to watch fights. Oh Seho replied that fights are violent, so it's hard for her to watch them. Meanwhile, Soo-hyun was rubbing his arm after Kim Woo-jun's powerful leg kick. The guy thought about how Kim Woo-jun was stronger than he really thought. It's just an informal fight, but he's being so harsh and pushy. He was going to fight at half strength, but he might lose this way. Kim Woo-jun was worried that he too would become like the comrades behind him if he lost to him. He realized that the guy is completely reckless. He only acts the way he likes and is very arrogant. Kim said that if he won in return, the guy would have to wear a girl's uniform to school and come up to him every morning to check on him. Soo-hyun agreed. He felt as if he had met himself from the past. Kim was surprised that he agreed so easily. It must be rewarding for him since he looks like a host. Kim Woo-jun flew at the kid with another punch. He called him a stupid idiot, and in turn he just needs to not lose, and that's that. Soo-hyun dodges the punch. Then he came at Kim with his fist. Woo-jun almost got hit in the face. He dodged and began to attack his opponent as well. They both pulled back into a fighting stance. Neither one yielded to the other. Soo-hyun said that Kim Woo-jun is just like him. He's a copy of his past. So I want to set him straight even more. He exclaimed that he too had once been a bully who didn't care about anything. Naturally, he drank and smoked. He fought every day, rode his motorcycle on the roads, and lived without shame. However, even a life that seemed like it would be carefree until the very end as he grew older only caused a sense of shame. Such a life was both carefree and empty at the same time. He began to wonder if he was living the right life at all. His doubts turned into certainties after that day, when the guys would gather in the street and tell him to be quiet or they'd pick up the trash again. Soo-hyun was asked by the boys why he was so quiet. They noticed that something was wrong with this guy lately. Young Soo-hyun was 17 years old at the time. The other guy said he's been freaking out about his little brother lately. Almost got in a fight with him today. The kid wondered if his brother was in junior high school. He said that his brother asked him to help him with his homework. It was easy, so he solved it quickly. The next day, he came and said that all the answers were wrong and called him a fool. Others said it was disrespectful to the older man. If his younger brother said that, the guy would punch him in the face. When he showed the tasks, Soo-hyun thought he was really an idiot. Basically, everything was right there, as the guy thought. Soo-hyun started saying that there was nothing right. He asked him to apologize to his brother. He's definitely a high school student. How could he get such elementary examples so wrong? He made a mistake and is making a fool of himself. For that, he gave the guy a frog cocktail as punishment. They put it in there for flavor. Afterward, the guys laughed. He asked the guys to use their brains. He drank it in one gulp, ignoring the frog that was inside. That's when he suddenly realized that his life would never improve if he kept hanging out with those guys. And he had completely given up on the ridiculous idea that he would ever live, even if he lived a rambunctious lifestyle. Kim wondered what the punishment with the frog and the beer had been like. He was probably thinking the same thing now. But life is such a stale thing that if you don't put in the effort, you can't accomplish anything. If you're a freshman in high school, it's not too late. He asked Kim Woo-jun to get smart soon. Kim exclaimed that the guy was talking too much, whether he was going to fight with his fists or have conversations. Soo-hyun said he didn't have to realize that right now. First, he wanted the kid to take a few punches from him, so he came at Kim with his fists. But the kid instantly dodged once again. He deftly dodged his opponent's blows, then tried to attack. The opponent flipped over doing somersaults in the air. The crowd of spectators immediately roared behind them. No one expected Kim Woo-jun to take this guy down with one strong punch. It was an interesting sight for everyone else. Soo-hyun was lying on the ground after that punch. He was in real pain. Kim said that he didn't actually ask about his past, but he realized that the guy had picked himself up. Then he should just transfer to another school and study. Why is he doing this in Gyeongso? He was thinking of transferring, but suddenly an interesting thought occurred to him. Soo-hyun wondered why on earth he had to leave. It's not like he can just set up Gyeongso completely for himself. It's enough to create a peaceful learning environment, so he quickly dealt with the school's worst bullies and solved the problem. And he's actually very altruistic, despite stupid guys like him wanting to give them a better life. That's why he let all the bullies in the school be reborn as model students. He explained that he had knocked all thoughts of fighting and bullying out of their heads. He made them study so they could get into university. I bet their parents are even grateful to him. From behind the fence, Lee So-yeon looked out. She wondered why everyone had suddenly stopped. What were they doing? Why weren't they fighting? The girls asked Lee So-yeon if she could see anything outside the fence. Lee So-yeon said that Kim Woo-jun had almost won just now. Really, isn't there any other place where they can watch the fight? On the other side, the intimidating Sunbae lined up in a row and guarded everything so no one could squeeze through. They told the girls that it was dangerous and asked them to leave. The girls replied that they could go to church like that. The girls thought that if Seo-yeon didn't start talking nonsense, they wouldn't be so intimidating. But they can't hang on the wall like her. It would be good if there was some small gap or hole in the wall. Lee So-yeon apologized to the girls and said that she would make a hole for them. The girls asked how. She replied that she would just run through it. The girls exclaimed that in that case they would be caught. Lee So-yeon promised them that she would try to do it quite quietly. She crept up to the wall and struck with all her might, clenching her fist. The girls said she'd promised to do it quietly. This is where they were noticed, of course. All eyes fell on the girls and the broken wall. That was Soo-hyun Kim's way of saying that he let all the bullies of the school be reborn into model students. He blew all thoughts of fighting and bullying out of their heads. He made them study so they could get into university, to the point where their parents are grateful to him. Well, At least his mom was happy. Does he know the guy from third year? He slapped a first-year student. And it's just awful. Apparently the kid doesn't know that. Then maybe tell you something else. That's what they talked about during the fight. Kim Woo-jun walked down the hallway before meeting shoulder to shoulder with his opponent. When they saw that guy, he started calling him names. Kim just wanted to move on. But then the kid accelerated and punched him in the face with all his might, in a way that Kim didn't expect. He flew back against the wall, pressing his back and head into the wall. The guy asked, not knowing that he didn't control his anger, aka Kim Woo-jun from freshman year. The guy realized that everything happened just in time. Choi Kyusop from second year. He's not aware of the guy's offense by purposely tapping on his shoulder and punching him in the jaw. If he had known, he would have corrected this guy. After all, they're the bullies who are messing up the school. These two are the type that pretend to be weak in front of the strong and show strength in front of the weak. So it's entirely possible that the guy didn't know anything. After all, in front of him, their uncontrolled anger is suddenly cured. They probably looked just like guys in his eyes. But in the eyes of the other guys, it was different. He asked me to be honest. He didn't really care about this school. Come to think of it, it was impossible that he couldn't know about it when there were so many rumors going around, or decided to silently allow this behavior. They're not a threat to him either way, both are just disgusting. It is presented as if entirely devoted to the school of Kinso, intoxicated, imagining himself as a hero. But he seems like he doesn't really care about anything, and only gets rid of people who annoy him. He justifies himself to others by making it seem like he's putting the bad guys on the right path. Kim Woo-jun, pointing his finger at his opponent, exclaimed that he was just a low-grade hypocrite. Soo-hyun angrily called him names. The guy's gaze was angry and full of hatred. At this time, the girls were already looking into the hole that Lee So-yeon had punched with a powerful punch. The girls tried to be quiet, but then Soo-hyun noticed them and wondered who else it could be. That's the guy he hates the most. And then Kim's punch came back at the guy. Kim Woo-jun called him scum, and when he hit the kid, he told him to get punched in the face and die. He punched him really hard in the face. The blood spurted from his mouth in bright scarlet splashes. Kim Woo-jun turned out to be really strong. He didn't let that guy down. He tried to strike again, but there was no way. Soo-hyun instantly dodged his blow. He tried to hit Kim Woo-jung back. The fight broke out again, and the fight continued. This time, they decided not to give in to both of them. And now Kim Woo-jun was already flying backwards. Soo-hyun threw a lot of punches at him in a row. He was really angry. The girls peered through the hole in the wall and their mouths dropped open. They didn't expect to be hit so hard. Lee So-yeon noticed that Woo-jun was in a difficult position. What he does is interesting. Why he doesn't fight back. It's possible this guy's actually a masochist. As expected of the yellow-haired man, he didn't let expectations down after all. Kim asked them to shut up. Soo-hyun smiled echidnously and wondered if that was his nickname, the yellow-haired anchovy. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that it wasn't his nickname and delivered a knee strike right to his opponent's head. Then turning around, he gave him another whirl on the head. Blood spurted from the guy's mouth again. Soo-hyun flew back, looking at the boy with a surprised look. He hadn't expected such powerful blows. Kim Woo-jun jumped up again and wanted to strike a second time with his knee. Then he straightened his leg and tried to kick him in the face. But the guy tripped him at that point. Kim Woo-jun didn't notice this blow and flew backwards onto the pavement. He clenched his teeth in pain. Soo-hyun began to approach him, clenching his strong fists. He stood over the boy. He was already very close to Kim. He clenched his fists and tried to attack again, but Kim Woo-jun began to lift his foot off the ground, pointing it toward his opponent. And then another powerful blow flew right into his face. Soo-hyun wasn't going to give up. After kicking him in the face, the guy's fist flew into Kim Woo-jun's nose. Lee So-yeon watched the fight with interest. She exclaimed that she wanted to join in too. The guys were both lying on the floor, not stopping the fight. But then they paused for a moment. They both caught their breath before another attack. Soo-hyun tried to raise himself up on his elbows. It was as if he had lost consciousness for a second. That's why he didn't notice Kim Woo-jun grabbing him by the hair. He couldn't stop. The kid clenched his strong fist and aimed it at his opponent's face. Soo-hyun thought about the fact that if it goes on like this, he would lose. He just can't wear a woman's uniform. After imagining this, the guy decided to take action, after which he also grabbed his opponent by the hair. It was a brutal fight. When Soo-hyun grabbed Kim Woo-jun's hair, drops of scarlet blood also flowed out of his mouth. They were holding each other by the hair, making eerie noises. It was like the roar of a beast. The guys from outside were watching with even more interest than before. In fact, the events began to develop much more interestingly than before. They flipped from head to toe, rolling over the pavement, but they didn't let go of each other. Holding their hair with one hand, they tried to deliver brutal blows with their other hand. Kim Woo-jun threw the boy face down on the ground. Soo-hyun in turn kept his hands on his face, Kim Woo-jun has asked his opponent to step up. Does he really want to dress up in a woman's uniform? But the guy never got up. Suddenly, someone appeared behind Kim Woo-jun's back. It was his friend. He came after all. He called his comrade an idiot and asked to see the color of his face. He told him not to fight. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he had won. His friend praised him by calling him an idiot again and told him to go home already. His sister must be worried. But their path was suddenly blocked by the girls. At their head stood Lee So-yeon. She clenched her fist while looking at the boys. The boy grabbed the back of his head with his hand and was very surprised that they could really come, just because he said so. The guy said it was dangerous and told them to go home. Lee So-yeon realized it was the yellow-haired anchovy's friend. The guy couldn't understand what she was talking about. The girls noticed that their Woo-jun was in a difficult position. Kim's friend asked them to try to be quiet in this case. It won't be good if they get caught by the Hyungs here. Even if they look kind, they're still crazy. Oh Seho asked Shihyun why he came. The guy replied that he came to get Woo-jun. Otherwise, he'll fight again until his whole body is covered in bruises. Lee! So-yeon exclaimed that the guy was talking as if this wasn't the first time this had happened. He's been fighting constantly since middle school. Shihyun explained that he had always looked out for him. She didn't realize if he was too kind or just a simpleton. Shihyun replied that the girl was right. What can you do if he's his friend? Lee So-yeon noticed that the yellow-haired anchovy man appeared to be surrounded by good people. The next day came. The morning greeted with its sunny, tender rays. One of the guys approached Kim Woo-jung. He said he heard that he beat the third-year leader yesterday. That's pretty cool. Kim replied that it was no big deal. He was hoping for an interesting fight since there were rumors about his strength, but it turned out to be nothing special. It was like fighting against a toddler. The guys noticed that he had too many patches on his body for that. Kim said that Yang Soo-hyun promised to come in a girl's uniform to school. Let him try to get away, then he'll see. And so the boy was on his way to school. The teacher gave him a strange look when he saw him. He began to stare at the kid without realizing what was going on. The teacher almost lost his jaw. He asked Yang Soo-hyun what was wrong with him. What kind of outrage is this? After all, the guy came in a woman's uniform. He said he was done with all the hooliganism and was going to devote himself to his studies. He was speechless. He's crazy. If a man made a promise, Soo-hyun couldn't help but fulfill it. He asked the teacher to understand him. The teacher told the boy not to classify him as such, or he would get it. Soo-hyun exclaimed that he didn't want to wear a skirt at all. He doesn't like it himself. The man asked him not to do that. Even the principal would not allow it. Then the principal appeared and asked who would not allow it. Teacher and Soo-hyun immediately turned towards the principal. They didn't expect to see him here. Lee So-yeon opened her mouth in surprise when she noticed that Soo-hyun had indeed come in a woman's uniform. They were all quite surprised. Kim Woo-jun saw his inveterate enemy. He asked the girl if she now realized how strong he was. Soon they would fight sometime too. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that her father told her not to hang out with him anymore. Kim Woo-jun was surprised by what the girl said. It was as if her father had warned her not to hang out with that guy anymore. He looked at her very surprised. He wondered why. Meanwhile, let's go back to last night. Oh Seho told the girls that Kim Woo-jun fought skillfully. She claimed he was a tough guy from way back. The other friend noticed that they both fought hard. She felt like she was watching an action movie. Only Lee So-yeon exclaimed that they don't know how to fight at all. The girls clearly don't know how to do it. Just then they heard a sound. Oh Seho wondered what time it was. When she picked up the phone, she realized it was too late. She mumbled that her father would kill her for sure. The second girl was getting worried too. She forgot to tell her mom that she was going to be late. The girls asked Seo-yeon if she was going to be okay, but the girl froze as if she were standing still. Streams of sweat trickled down her face. Her friends immediately realized that she must not be. Lee. So-yeon exclaimed that she was finished. She ran as fast as she could through the house to the window. The girl reached the window and began to carefully open it as quietly as possible. She made a successful sneak entry into the house and landed neatly on one knee on the floor. Lee So-yeon thought to herself as she successfully and quietly made her way to the room. Now just have to play the part perfectly, pretending like she'd been home for a while. But she wasn't. Her brother showed up. She wondered why he was here, whether his mother and father had come. The brother replied that they had. The girl began to ask her brother to help her sister sooner, not to be caught by her parents. But the brother started calling for the father. That was her bad luck. He wasn't going to cover for his sister. The girl coughed. She imagined what was about to happen. She was ready to be punished. She waited for her father to come, and then a fearsome, huge monster appeared on the doorstep. He came out like a monster. The girl sat on her knees on the floor and closed her eyes with her hands in the air. Apparently, she was waiting to be punished. Her father was very strict and asked her to raise her hands properly. Lee Seo-yeon tensed up even more. The brother watching the scene coughed and said that the girl had been caught. Her father scolded her. He had told her that strange monsters came out of everywhere in the evening. He's going to experiment on her, an intelligent body from another planet, in case something like that attacks her. Well, it doesn't matter now. Her father continued to scold Seo-yeon. He exclaimed that she was still young, so it was dangerous for her to go out alone late at night. As long as she lives in his house, she should listen to him. What was that look on her part? The girl had a look of sympathy. Dad asked her if she thought he'd fall for it. Then he asked her to put her hands down. Her father instructed her to come home early from now on. Lee So-yeon giggled and said that she would do that. The girl wanted to get up from the floor, but then her father stopped her again. He asked who had allowed her to leave. Lee So-yeon realized that there was more to it. Her father exclaimed that he hadn't told her everything yet. He asked her why she had come so late. Lee So-yeon explained that she was just having fun with Sohee and Seho, and watching stuff, like the yellow-haired anchovy acting like a kindergartner. When her father heard that, he yelled at her not to hang out with that yellow-headed anchovy anymore. He's a gangster. Even if they're not in love, if she goes out with him, she'll get all kinds of stuff from him and become a gangster too. Then he won't be responsible for himself. The girl looked at her father with an understanding look. She agreed with him. That was all she told Kim Woo-jun, fully explaining what had happened yesterday, and added that from now on they should have fun in a way that they wouldn't be caught by her father. Kim asked if they got caught. Wouldn't it be the end of both of them? Or just him alone? The girl replied that of course it would. Well, it's okay and they just need to not get caught. She laughed and exclaimed that even though he's a crazy yellow-haired anchovy who can't fight, he's a pretty funny guy, so she likes spending time with him. The kid immediately smiled achidically back. After listening to her incredulous chuckles, just then someone's feet appeared in front of them. Someone stomped loudly down the corridor. The guys around them opened their mouths when they saw the kid who was beaten up by Kim Woo-jun. The defeat that Soo-hyun faced for the first time caused a sense of humiliation, but the self-loathing was much stronger, so the humiliation was just nothing to him. In fact, everyone was whispering behind his back, and he knew it all too well. He knew about both Donsok and Kyusop. That they behaved as they wished, he did not see. He knew everything and just turned a blind eye. The most effective method of correcting bullies is, of course, violence. That's what the kid thought. After all, there are those who only come to their senses when they've had it. He still thinks the same thing, but he's still too weak to put all the bullies on the path of truth. Even knowing he would have to give up one thing to get another, wanted to keep the friendship and was biased. That's why he ended up as a low-grade hypocrite. He couldn't say anything back to Kim, but everything he said was right. What needs to change is himself, not anyone else. He just needs to focus on the entrance exam. Lee So-yeon grabbed Kim's cheek, turning her head towards Soo-hyun. He meanwhile turned her head towards that guy. Soo-hyun approached them in his female form. He said that he had come to show himself to him as promised. Kim grimaced at the thought of having to look at it every morning. Lee Seo-yeon looked at his legs and thought they were prettier than hers. Kim Woo-jun asked Sunbae not to come in a skirt anymore. It's better to forget about it. The guy asked not to sympathize with him. It's only annoying. Like he said, he really is a low-grade hypocrite. So he will gratefully accept his punishment. And why is he going to gratefully accept it all? Sunbae seems to have discovered a new world. He told the boy that they would see each other again tomorrow morning, but Kim asked him not to come. From that day on, Sunbae got a new nickname, the Skirt of Remorse. That's an interesting story. Some guy was walking down the street taking another guy to the ground and standing with his foot on him called him a scum domino. He had a cigarette in his teeth. He was laughing snidely at the guy. Then he continued smoking and called everyone around him little bastards. Meanwhile, it was raining outside. The green grass was completely wet. Leesh. So-yeon was looking out the window, listening to the sound of the rain. She thought about the fact that it was raining and she didn't have an umbrella with her. Kim Woo-jun went outside and noticed that it was really raining, and he was told to remember to bring an umbrella. The boy didn't listen to his sister. She was right. Kim looked at Lee Seo-yeon questioningly, whereupon he smiled evasively and pointed a finger at her. He exclaimed that the girl had obviously come without an umbrella. She wondered how he knew about it. The kid asked as soon as she couldn't have predicted it would rain. He was denying her the right to be his rival. She wanted to know why on earth he was her rival. In this contest, his powers of foresight won out. If she needed an umbrella, he could lend her one. But in order to do that, she has to win the palm wrestling. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that she knew it. She knew he wouldn't share the umbrella for nothing, and called him a yellow-haired anchovy. Kim Woo-jun mumbled that if she pissed herself, she could go home. Completely drenched in rain, Lee So-yeon asked him to stop talking, but it was better to attack. She was furious with anger at him, and so the palm wrestling began. The one who first breaks the opponent's center of gravity using only palm claps wins. It is also possible to win by using the force of the push against himself. Therefore, this game also involves a psychological struggle. Meanwhile, outside, the rain poured unceasingly. It drummed on the windows and on the streets. Lee So-yeon was holding an umbrella in her hands. She asked the kid what he was doing. Why isn't he running home? Kim Woo-jun replied that he was on his way. He turned around and headed home in the rain. A girl called out to him. She explained to the boy that their houses were in the same direction, so she decided to share the umbrella with him. Kim turned to the girl in surprise. She added that he would carry the umbrella in that case. The rain drummed and drummed. It turned from a light rain to a heavy downpour. Kim Woo-jun was carrying an umbrella. Next to him was Lee So-yeon. They walked in silence the whole way. The kid didn't say a word. The girl threw a questioning look at him. She wondered what it was with him. She thought he was just a yellow-haired anchovy, a bandit whose food goes to the wind. But it turned out there were some nice sides to him. The girl asked if his shoulder was all right. He didn't know what she meant at first. Lee So-yeon decided to skip this conversation. What could she expect from a psycho like him? A kitten started meowing in front of them. He was sitting alone in the rain. The girl immediately stopped when she saw this cute kitten. What should we do now since he's so cute? Kim Woo-jun covered his mouth with his hand. The girl looked at him again with surprise. She was drilling him with her gaze. Kim Woo-jun asked what was so important about a street kitten. He asked her to go home quickly. Well, the kitten was very small and beautiful. He wouldn't stop meowing very pitifully looking at them. Lee So-yeon couldn't remain indifferent. The kid couldn't pass by either. The girl wondered what to do in this situation, and they did not continue on their way until they came to a cute animal. Lee So-yeon asked what it was he was saying there a few minutes ago. The kid pretended he didn't say anything. The girl asked what he was going to do with it. Kim replied that he would take him home and take care of him, even though he can't leave him for long because his sister is allergic to cat hair. Lee So-yeon asked if he had any allergies. The boy replied that he was fine, but before he could say anything, he started sneezing. The girl exclaimed that he was allergic too, so she's gonna have to take it herself. She asked me to give it to her. She'll take good care of the kitten. The boy changed his face and became sad. The girl asked him why he was so upset, but Kim Woo-jun replied that he wasn't upset at all. He's perfectly fine. After that, the girl had already arrived home. Her father and brother immediately greeted her. The father's face changed completely. His eyes glistened and he glanced at the girl with the kitten. He asked what it was. Lee So-yeon replied that she would heal him and let him out into the wild. The girl asked them not to fight. The father remarked that he was very cute. My brother exclaimed that he wanted to kiss him. I can't stand it. So he asked his father to raise the little one. They can pick the best name for him, like Ronnie Coleman. They asked her to pick something cute, and so 2 weeks passed. It was a sunny, clear day outside. There was not a single cloud in the sky. Kim Woo-jun was standing behind the girl's back. She got very angry and asked him to stop looking at her like that. I mean, he said he wasn't in love with her. She asked him if he wanted to fight her. I'm sure he has since the beginning of the semester. He asked when Lee So-yeon would give him back his umbrella. It's been 2 weeks. Where's his umbrella gone? He's the one who wants to ask her if she wants to fight. Then let her start if she has the guts. She doesn't keep her promise. Lee So-yeon said he could come over in the morning to pick up her umbrella. The boy resented why he had to come. The girl explained that he was just going to see how the kitten was doing. He loves kittens, doesn't he? She certainly doesn't ask him to do that just because she forgets to take her umbrella with her every day. When he heard about the kitten, the boy immediately smiled. The girl reminded him that he lived with her now. A classmate appeared behind the girl's back. He asked if she had a kitten. What were they even talking about? She sweetly asked him if he wanted to come see the kitten at her house. The girl got angry and exclaimed that he had already imagined it. She called the guy an idiot. Kim Woo-jun was very happy. He said that he hadn't seen the kitten in a long time. Lee So-yeon explained that it had grown a lot, probably because it was eating well. And now a huge high-rise apartment building was rising in the midst of a wide, light-colored street. The two of them were already approaching the driveway. The girl led her friend into the house. She explained that she was going to go change, and he could play with Ronnie for now. He asked if the kitten would come to him if he called him. Then he started calling the kitten. When the animal came out to him, he was very surprised. The cat was healthy. He was pumped up like some kind of monster. When the boy heard the cat meowing, you were even more surprised. There was no limit to his surprise. Kim Woo-jun immediately grabbed his face with his hands. His gaze changed completely. The girl's entire family leaned over the kitten. They moved closer to him, watching him eat. They asked the kitten to eat more. If he eats well, he must be very hungry. My father said he wasn't eating well at all. If he eats so badly, he won't be healthy. My brother had a good idea, a really good idea. They started feeding the kitten some supplements so that it would eat and grow properly. They laughed and said it was a great idea. The father praised his son, which was expected of him. That's the only way he'll become a real big guy. Kim Woo-jun remembered Lee, So-yeon telling him that he had grown a lot because he ate well. The boy thought to himself that this family was obviously crazy. What have they done to the poor kitten? Then he heard the sound of the door opening. He remembered that he had once asked the girl if they would be screwed if they both got caught by their father. At the time, the girl had answered that there would indeed be a lid on them. Kim Woo-jun thought about how he would be finished if he was caught now, what to do and where to hide. Lee Han-byul had already returned. The girl's brother walked into the house, started shooting his creepy eyes. The cat stood at attention in front of him. The boy also stood at attention, stretching to his full height. Lee Han-byul was very surprised to see this guy in front of him. His eyes flashed with rage. Kim Woo-jun was really scared. He exclaimed that he had been burned after all. The man waved his arms to grab the boy. He called him a yellow-haired anchovy and asked him if he thought he was an idiot. Kim Woo-jun replied that their family was definitely not normal. Kim Woo-jun immediately dodged the man's punch. He tried to grab the man by the pecs, but the man asked him not to grab him. Just then, Lee So-yeon ran into the room. She exclaimed that she told him to play with the kitten. What a racket he's making. But she saw her brother in front of her, lying on top of the poor kid. She didn't expect anyone to come home at that time, so she just stood there looking at her brother. She asked him since when they had been in such a relationship. Lee Han-byul exclaimed that it wasn't like that. He asked his sister to listen first. Then Daddy joined them. He started laughing and stretching his arms toward them, but suddenly out of the blue, Kim Woo-jun made a move on the big man, lifting his knee up. When my father saw this, he was very angry and surprised. The room was in complete chaos. The kid grimaced, shifting his eyebrows. This was the situation, and how they were going to get out of it. They found themselves at a table across from each other, and now a pumped-up mother came up to them with food in her hands, offering them something to eat. Before that, my father appeared and walked laughingly into the room, alerting me that Daddy was back. And here we stopped with Kim Woo-jun raising his knee for the hold. Then my father came up and began to shout with a wild roar what the hell was going on. When the father swore, the mother asked him not to swear in front of the children. She had already told him that. The mother was as pumped up and huge as the rest of the family. She sounded like a monster. They asked the yellow-haired anchovy what was going on here, why he's at their house right now. They asked Lee So-yeon to explain everything right away. The girl replied that she didn't know. Kim Woo-jun asked who he looked like in their eyes right now. There's got to be an explanation for the whole situation. I wonder if that's why he broke into their house. The boy replied that of course not. His head was buzzing with this family. He explained that he had just stopped by to check on the kitten. He wasn't doing anything weird. It was getting late now, so the kid got ready to leave. His father was going to let him go, and his mother wondered if he was leaving already, offering him something to eat before he left. The boy turned and laughed and said that it was all right. He didn't need to eat. He wanted to get out of here as soon as possible, and his father wanted to get him out of here as soon as possible. His father asked why labor and prepare a portion for the yellow-haired man as well. Kim Woo-jun explained that his older sister was waiting for him. Dad didn't bother. He just wanted to send the anchovy out of here as soon as possible. Then he laughed. The kid thought about how this person annoyed him a lot. Lee So-yeon asked Kim Woo-jun if he needed to go home sooner. Kim Woo-jun replied that it was fine. After all, they even showed hospitality and set up for him. It would be completely rude to just leave. The father, in turn, wondered why the bastard wouldn't leave. The boy was really sick of his bullying. Lee So-yeon watched from the sidelines and clutched her stomach. It was hard for her to breathe. The boy was wished a pleasant appetite. He said thank you, and noticed that the unidentified brown-colored substance contained a bunch of protein. Just had to get out of here. The father said to the yellow-haired anchovy that they didn't even know his name. The boy replied that he was Kim Woo-jun. His father laughed and exclaimed that unlike his appearance, his name was manly. In Korean, the word for his name has the meaning of urine, but that's if you say Ojum. And he's actually Ujun. The man asked which was better, Ojum or yellow-haired anchovy. The boy replied that both were terrible. The father began to yell, pounding his fist on the table as he then called the kid. He asked to just call him Woo-jung. Lee Han-byul asked the yellow-haired anchovy what the address to his father was. He threw a chicken breast at him. The boy opened his mouth and the breast flew inside him. He began to chew on it. Hanbyo looked at the boy with a menacing, fierce gaze. Lee So-yeon asked her brother not to throw food, since he was acting too outrageous. Kim Woo-jun thought that this family was really weird. Weird is an understatement. Dad called the kid a yellow-haired anchovy again. Then he said he didn't like the little fellow. Kim Woo-jun thought about just eating soon and getting the hell out of here. Something about this liquid didn't appeal to him. He tried to lift the spoon to his mouth. I couldn't figure out what was wrong. The spoon was too heavy for some reason. His father realized that the boy had overlooked it. In their house, the lightest items and clothes weigh at least 5 kilograms. For a weakling like Kim, eating dinner at their house is not a simple matter, it's hard work. He's going to give him the worst meal of his life. The man asked the yellow-haired anchovy to enjoy it. Disappointment and regret. Hatred for his own weak body. That's what awaited him. His father laughed again as he said this. Kim notices that Lee So-yeon doesn't care about the weight of the spoon at all. She holds it very calmly and lifts it easily. Or maybe it's just him. It feels like a spoon weighs at least 5 pounds. He asked the girl to give him her spoon. The father became very angry. He looked at the boy with an angry look. Lee So-yeon immediately handed her spoon to Kim Woo-jun. Father was thinking about why that bastard suddenly asked her for a spoon. Was he about to perform an indirect kiss right in front of him? He called the guy a douche again. In the eyes of So-young's father, Kim goes around seducing girls, smoking, drinking, doing drugs, and has a history of murder. When the guy picked up the spoons, he realized they were the same. He began to look at the spoons and wondered what they were made of. The boy tried to understand. In the eyes of the girl's father, it was as if the kid was flirting with his daughter with a spoon. The father was angry again and reached for the yellow-haired anchovy. The boy barely had time to dodge. His father wished him dead. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he didn't want to die. What a crazy man. He threatened to show the kid what ruthless killing was. Lee So-yeon grabbed her head with her hands and told them to stop. Then she grabbed Kim by the scruff of the neck and dragged her toward the door. The father asked his daughter what she was going to do with the yellow-haired anchovy instead of eating it. So the girl finally dragged the kid right to the door. She wanted to get out of this crazy house as soon as possible. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed, sitting on the floor, that this was too much even for her father. He continued to sit on the steps looking at the girl. There was silence. He kept his gaze on her, but the girl was silent for a long time. Then she apologized to the boy. Finally, he was outside. The girl walked him all the way to the door. Kim Woo-jun said to her that she didn't have to go out and see him off. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that it was fine. She just wants to get some fresh air since she's out. The girl waved him off and said that they would see each other at school tomorrow. They both felt kind of awkward after everything that had happened at the girl's house. She didn't go straight home. She sat down on the stairs at the entrance to the apartment building. There were some guys walking by. One of them said that the guys from class number 6 were complete dummies at soccer. Mino and Jinu are the only ones who can do anything. The other boy replied that their class was doing well. Then they noticed a girl sitting alone on the steps. One of the guys said that the ones they should worry about were the number 1 class. The guys asked their friend if he was listening to what they were saying. He himself said that they should have a meeting to create a strategy. Chong Hosu wasn't listening to anyone. He was looking in a completely different direction. The guys looked at him sadly when their friend didn't react. His name was John Hosu. He was 14 years old. Friends wondered what was wrong with this guy lately. He's been in the clouds all day. He's on drugs or something. He probably wanted to see So-yeon. He's consumed by unrequited love. The guys were standing just in front of the high-rise building at the foot of which Lee So-yeon was sitting with her head down sadly. The boy asked Jung Hosu why he was frozen. They're discussing important things here. It's Nuna Seo-yeon, so she lives here. Nuna is what a younger brother calls his older sister. The guy asked his friend if he would introduce this girl to him. The comrade replied that he wouldn't. He knows her, but she doesn't know him. His friend goes to Kunso school and he told about her, but it's different from the stories he's heard. Apparently he's out of shape right now. The guys asked him what he'd heard. The kid mumbled that it was no big deal, deciding to move past this conversation. It's better to continue about soccer. But Jung Hosu asked if he knew anything else about her. With a hand on his cheek, he asked again if the boy knew anything more about Lee Seo-young. Then the guy asked if he was in love. Jung Hosu replied that he wasn't in love but was just asking out of curiosity. The boys noticed that it was very suspicious. His sister also goes to Kyunso. They advised that it would be better to ask her. Jung Hosu exclaimed that his friend was a genius. The boy smiled back and said that he was really smart. The other fellow called him an idiot. After all, he was on his 50th math test together. The kid asked him to shut up, said he was 52nd himself. They couldn't figure out where their friend had gone. That's some speed he had. He disappeared from their sight so fast. In front of us was a huge high-rise building. The lights were on in the apartments. A girl continued to sit downstairs. Meanwhile, the boy was already running to his sister's house, since she was very strict with him. He was in front of her, completely wet with sweat. The girl mumbled that she had told him to come home early. The boy didn't listen to her, but immediately asked if she knew Lee Seo-yeon. She looked at him with a questioning look. Jung Sabine was Hosu's older sister. The girl asked why he was suddenly interested. He explained that his friend said he heard about her from Hyun's from Gyunso High School. His sister replied that she was the one who had been going around with Kim Woo-jung all the time lately. Hosu immediately resented the fact that she had a boyfriend, but his sister said it was unlikely. Kim Woo-jung doesn't seem to be interested in her as a girlfriend. The boy immediately caught his breath, calming down. His sister wondered why he was so calm all of a sudden. He asked a counter-question if she knew anything else about this girl. Sabine sat down on a chair and began to think. She remembered that when she sat at her desk at school, she told the girls that she had gotten a declaration of love yesterday from a guy at her younger brother's school. The girls began to wonder if it was real. They immediately laughed. They asked if there was a photo. Jung Sabin tried to remember his name. Then I found a picture. The girls said he was really cute. They told her to go out with him. But Sabine said she wasn't interested in younger guys. Then what about Seo-yeon's younger brother? He's from that high school, too. One of the girls said she heard about him. They say he's very mature. What kind of maturity can a middle school kid have? Scratching the back of her head, her sister said that it seems her younger brother is in the same parallel as him, and advised his younger brother to find out from him everything he wanted to know about this girl. Hosu walked around the school and asked the kids. One of them thoughtfully said that Nuna Seo-young's brother, Lee Han-byul, was in class number 5. The boy didn't give up. He went further down the corridor and saw the numbered offices in front of him. It seemed like just before him was class number 5. He wondered what the girl's younger brother looked like. Jung Sabin said he was very mature. The boy decided to follow her lead. Any way he could imagine him. He noticed one adult and mature guy, and at first he thought it was him. If her little brother is like this man, will she see him as a real man? Scratching the back of his head, he thought it was a bad thing. The other guys decided that Hosu clearly had some kind of itch. Why did he come to their class? Hosu clenched his fist and decided not to give up. With his inner maturity, he wouldn't lose to him. That's the thing about kids. They think they're adults. The boys looked at him and thought he looked strange. I wonder if he's just out of his mind. So Hosu walked forward down the hallway. He saw another boy and asked if Lee Han-byul was in this class. Now he was right in the right place. The boy pointed his finger at the man standing across from them. It was a big, beefy man, who looked more like a creepy monster. Hosu looked at him with a surprised look. This guy was really Nuna's brother, but he didn't believe the kid. He grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and asked him not to pour it on him. But the boy replied that it was really her brother. I mean, they don't look anything alike. And he's not even a high school student, so why is he even here? But the kid wouldn't stop saying he was a student. He just looks old. Meanwhile, Lee So-yeon's brother heard all of these guys' conversation from the corner of his ear. He suddenly asked them to stop, and turning his head toward the boy inquired what business he had with him, calling him a red-haired anchovy. Hosu took his will in his fist and asked the man if he was really Nuna So-yeon's brother. The man told the boy that he was. Hosu heard the answer and immediately swallowed his saliva. Sweat dripped down his cheeks, but he was a very brave boy inside. Clenching his fists, he went up to him and told him that he had a favor to ask of him. As he approached the man, he asked him to introduce him to his sister, but the man turned to the boy and told him no. He stared at the boy with his beastly gaze. That rejection struck him like a bolt of lightning. The other boy watching them was amazed at how brave the boy was. He stopped in front of the man and wondered why. The other boy decided that this boy was obviously crazy. Lee Han-byul explains that he and she don't even know each other, and he just comes and asks for one, who in his position would say yes. Then he called the boy an anchovy with a potty mouth. There's no way he'd give his sister to some unknown red-headed anchovy. Lee Han-byul explained that for 500 grams of protein, he would think about it. Hosu immediately exclaimed that he was giving him a box. Afterward, they made a contract between them. The man and the boy shook hands. The other kid watching quietly called them nuts. And so after a while, the boy approached Lee So-yeon's brother again. They stood opposite each other. The man came closer to him and asked if he had brought the promised goods. Hosu asked him to take his time. He prepared everything properly and took out a box of protein as promised. He opened the box to show the product. Lee Han-byul tasted the protein and said it had a vanilla flavor, but he liked the chocolate flavor better. Hosu asked him not to quibble. He did not say what flavor to bring. Then the man replied that he would first check the product for quality. He chopped one of the bags with his knife and licked the blade of the knife. Lee Hanbyul exclaimed that it was indeed the original. Hosu asked to be introduced to his sister sooner rather than later. The man replied that the volume of the item was a bit small. Then the boy exclaimed, had he forgotten that he were high school students? Does he have any idea how much this stuff costs? Or does he want the boy to starve to death after buying him so much protein? Why do business as an inept man? The boy called him a jock by threatening him with a gun. Lee Hanbyul asked who he was making it for. Vanilla flavor, which he doesn't particularly like. It's also less than it should be. In that case, he will cancel the deal. Hosu asked if he wanted to cancel the contract. He added that he would be the loser. Lee Hanbyul said that in that case, 7 more bags were needed. They haggled and came to 6 bags, not 1 less. The other boy couldn't bear to look at it. And there was a huge high-rise building in front of us. It was already evening. The lights were on in all the apartments. Lee Hanbyul laughed menacingly. He exclaimed that he was in a great mood. Hosu mumbled that he would prepare 6 bags for him. The man remarked that the red-haired anchovy had a great solution. First, he finds out what his sister's ideal type of man is, and he advised the boy to try to become a guy who matched him as much as possible. Lee Hanbyul was already approaching his sister, but before he could say anything, she exclaimed that she didn't want to. The girl thought her brother would try to take the TV away from her again to watch cartoons. The man promised that he would not take it away. In this case, the girl decided to listen to her brother. She asked him what the matter was. Lee Hanbyul asked if she had the perfect type of boyfriend. The girl exclaimed that of course she did. She pointed her finger at someone she really liked, Hyun from the Chocolate Boys. He is tall, muscular, but lean. He has a sensitive personality and a cute smile with his eyes. His clothes also fit perfectly on him. Lee Hanbyul thought to himself that he was just some anchovy. Her brother asked if tall, kind guys with a nice smile were her type. Lee So-yeon replied that she was absolutely right. What she hates most is guys who act like thugs, trying to seem tough. A guy's supposed to be kind, after all. Kind men the best kind. Lee Hanbyul noticed that this was the opposite of the yellow-haired anchovy. The girl said that he wasn't a man. Kim Woo-jun's ears suddenly itched. His friend exclaimed that someone was talking about him and laughed. He began to wonder who it could be. If you think about it, yellow and red anchovies, they do look something alike. Lee Hanbyul explained that he was just saying that just in case. Well, if he accepts a confession from the yellow-haired anchovy. Lee So-yeon asked him not to say such annoying things. And what kind of nonsense is he even saying? Kim Woo-jun grabbed his ears with his hand. He exclaimed that they were still burning. A friend asked him what he had done. The boy realized that it must be a girl talking about him. Lee Hanbyul thought about the red-headed anchovy. Definitely not the ideal type. The height doesn't fit, the kindness doesn't fit, the cute smile doesn't fit. The credibility is nil. The man thought they were in trouble. It's no good if it goes on like this. I'll have to return all the protein I got. He called the red anchovy and told him it was bad. He's the exact opposite of his sister's ideal type. Hosu asked what kind of person Nuna Seo-yeon is. Lee Hanbyul replied that he is cute, kind with a beautiful smile and eyes. Hosu said it was just like him. What other bad thing could there be? He was distracted by a classmate who told him that he had bought him the bun the boy had asked for. The boy immediately praised him. Then he looked at the bun and exclaimed that he had asked him to get banana milk too. A classmate explained that he didn't have enough money. Also, the banana milk had long since been sold out. Hosu, after his classmate explained to him what was wrong, elbowed him in the chest, and said that in that case, he could buy something with his own money. He's got a lot of experience as an errand boy. Couldn't he have thought of something? The other guy laughed at him. He laughed at what Hosu had said about the errand boys. Hosu exclaimed that he didn't care. After all, he had ruined his mood. The boy then offered the bun to Lee Hanbyul. Then the man turned to the red-haired anchovy. Turning his back to him, he clenched his fists and bowed his head down, saying that their contract had been cancelled. Hosu laughed and asked what the hell he was talking about. What then about the protein he gave him? Lee Hanbyul replied that he ate it all and would pay him back with money. The boy asked how he could have eaten the whole box. Did he really make a bowl of porridge out of it? The man inquired how he knew that. Then the boy asked if he was really going to act like that. Did what had just happened cause his confidence in him to plummet? Hosu explained that he always had so much fun with his friends. If he received the protein, he should fulfill his request. Lee Hanbyul replied that he would definitely return everything with money, and he didn't have trust in him initially. After all, there's a relationship between them based on nothing more than a contract. He thought he was just a guy who didn't inspire much confidence, and he actually turned out to be a piece of shit scumbag. He even felt too sorry to introduce his sister to a man like him. The boy was getting more than a little angry at the man's words. He turned in his direction, and the classmate began to call out to John Hosu, not understanding what he was going to do. The boy grabbed with one hand the chair in front of him. He gripped it very tightly, after which, with a sharp movement of his hand, he threw that chair directly at Lee Hanbyul's back. It was very bold and impertinent. Hosu called the man's name. The other boys gathered around him. They opened their mouths in amazement at the boy's boldness. They simply had no words. The man clenched his fists and Hosu stood behind him. It was certainly a very bold move. Hosu thought to grab the chair with his hand. Even worse, he threw it at the big man. Since the man was too big, the chair only tickled him. The boy had the nerve to call him names afterwards. The guys really just didn't have any words, and Lee Hanbyul immediately stopped, apparently wondering where this boy got so much chutzpah from. Hosu in turn wanted to attack him with his fists. The guys stopped him, calling him a crazy asshole. How could he have such a temper, like his sister? A classmate asked me to apologize to that man sooner rather than later, or he'll really die today. You have to look at your opponent before you star. Can't he see how big he is? Hosu replied that let him try to finish him off. Then today would be the day they die. The classmate exclaimed that he would die today and called him an idiot. Lee Hanbyul remembered his father's words. He talked about how no matter what happened, you shouldn't hit people. The son asked his father why. The father explained that it was because they would die if they missed a blow from him. Hosu shouted after the man to try to finish him off and called him a gorilla. Lee Hanbyul replied that he was not going to use violence. After all, he wasn't building up his strength to use it for this sort of thing. Hosu thought of the insect trying to act tough. He was determined to break the man's stubbornness sooner rather than later. After all, the boy would not give up. The classmates noticed that he was still going on. That's the kind of character Hosu has. Doesn't he get bored? It's been weeks now. The boy has broken everything against Lee Hanbyul's back. Chairs and mops and boards, nothing worked on him. The boy yelled that he was pissing him off and called him a gorilla. He asked me to hit him back. Lee Hanbyul was tired of taking it all, and the man was just tickled by his blows. The boys from the side called the boy a psycho and only laughed as they watched. Hosu's rage didn't stop there. He used harsher and more nefarious methods. Slowly but surely, Hanbyul's body and soul were being damaged. And so 4 weeks passed. The bell rang for class. Hosu said he was very lazy. He wanted to skip class, but his classmate didn't agree. He explained that the math teacher was very picky. He asked the boy to go to class soon. The boy asked Hosu what he was doing. The boy asked Hosu what he was doing, to which he replied that they could not come to class with cigarettes. Could it be that they're using Lee Hanbyul instead of an ashtray? The boy put out his cigarette on the man's face. He asked his classmate to shut up. Hosu asked Hanbyul to stop refusing. It's better to just fight. Always saying no, I don't want to, but actually enjoying it. The boy asked the man to take them home today and clapped his hand on his cheek. After class, the teacher asked the students not to hang around in various strange places, but to go straight home. Hosu sat on Lee Hanbyul's neck and talked about how his cab was very comfortable. The classmates walked beside him and asked the boy to get off. After all, they wanted to ride too, but the boy refused them. Suddenly he saw something in front of him and his face changed completely. The boys wondered what had happened to him and why he suddenly got off so lightning fast. The kid exclaimed that if he wasn't going already, let him ride. Hosu asked them to be quiet. Then he hid behind the house and called the boys to come to him. They could not understand what had suddenly happened to him. The boy asked them to stop talking, and he called Lee Hanbyul to come to him too and as soon as possible. When they were all gathered around the boy, they wondered stupidly what the matter was. Hosu began to explain that there was something. He saw the girl Lee So-yeon in front of him. Hosu exclaimed that this was his chance, a chance to pretend to be D. Hanbul's friend and get a couple extra points. He asked the man to just keep quiet and act like they were friends. If he played nice, they would let him go. Just then, the girl heard someone's voices off to the side. She perked up her ears, turning her head in that direction. Walking down the road was her brother. Hosu walked beside him, hugging him behind his back. He was cheerfully saying something to the man. Seeing Lee So-yeon, Hosu asked who it was. Isn't she Hanbyul's older sister, Nuna So-yeon? The girl exclaimed that it was her first time seeing him and asked who he was. The boy explained that he was Jong Hosu, Hanbyul's best friend. They have a friendship so strong that you can't find it anywhere else. He's heard a lot about her from Hanbyul, that he has a beautiful older sister. Lee So-yeon asked if her brother told everyone about her. Hosu said that she was really pretty, just like he said. The boy laughed and added that he was even a little jealous of Lee Hanbiol. The girl noticed that Hosu has very nice hands. They are just like a girl's. She asked him for permission to look at them. Lee Seo-yeon took his hand in hers and squeezed it, but the boy's hand immediately turned red. She wouldn't stop squeezing his hand. It was like she was going to break it. Hosu's classmates started screaming, not knowing what was going on. They were worried about their friend. The boy didn't know where to put himself from the pain anymore. His face was covered with droplets of sweat. After that, someone stepped on his foot. She almost crushed his lower extremity. Poor Hosu grimaced. He couldn't even utter a word. The girl didn't let go of her foot from his and took the boy's hand around his neck and pulled him to her. She wondered if he was bullying her brother. The guys who were watching from the sidelines opened their mouths in great amazement. Lee So-yeon asked, and he suddenly froze. Without letting him go, she asked if he was going to answer her. The girl wouldn't stop. She asked if she was right about it. She asked me to tell the truth. She looked at him intently with an angry stare and waited for an honest answer if he didn't want to be punished. Lee So-yeon put her hands on her head and exclaimed that it was exam time. No matter what happened, she had to pass the exams normally. She'll deal with the most hated math first. Kim Woo-jun appeared behind the girl's back. He offered to compete with her. Lee Seo-young told him to study for the exams too. He thought he should do math too. Lee So-yeon asked the guys to write a couple of encouraging words in her notebook before they started preparing. She'll write in theirs too. Kim Woo-jun remembered her telling him. Instead of wasting his time on this, he'd better get busy studying, and so they agreed to do it after all. There was always some kind of struggle between them. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that in that case he would be first. Let Lee So-yeon fall in the rankings. The girl looked up in surprise from the yellow-haired anchovy. She laughed contentedly, showing her confidence. Lee So-yeon mumbled that she just couldn't wait to do it. At that time, a classmate came up to them and took a notebook from the table. Suddenly, she tore a piece of paper that just shattered into small shreds. The girl asked her to go outside, apparently to deal with her. She remembered grabbing the red-headed guy and stepping on his foot, asking if he was bullying her brother. The girl looked into his eyes and wondered why he had suddenly frozen. She wondered why he was suddenly frozen if he wasn't going to answer her question. She asked if she was right. Hosu opened his mouth in bewilderment. He must have thought that this girl right here. She looked him in the eye and questioned the truth, if he didn't want to be punished, that the boy pretended not to know what she was talking about. She, in turn, wouldn't stop, and after his words and deception, she squeezed the boy's hand even tighter. Hosu asked her to wait. Comrade Hosu decided to intervene and wondered what they were talking about. Why did they even think they were the ones who were bullying their brother? Like Hosu said, they are friends, the girl replied, letting her look at Hanbyul. The ridiculously ponytailed beard, more burn marks on it, and his underpants. I think cigarettes were put out on him. Isn't that their job? The boys' comrades didn't know what to say. Hosu exclaimed that they did not smoke. Lee So-yeon asked how he would then explain the odor coming from his hands. Especially Hanbyul doesn't hang out with guys who smoke. After all, indirect smoking is also harmful to one's health. And would his real friends let him walk around like that? Lee So-yeon asked to at least tell the whole truth now and apologized to Hanbyul. Then the punishment for them wouldn't be so terrible. Comrade Hosu said they'd already said it wasn't them, and about the smell of cigarettes, she just imagined it. She jumped to conclusions without even having proof. The girl asked what then if she found cigarettes in their possession. My buddy said that they'll probably get a lot of grief then, both from Lee Hanbyul and her. He exclaimed that they could just show their backpacks, but only for her to let Hosa go. If she held his shoulder all the time, he wouldn't be able to take off his backpack. But when the girl let go of the boy's shoulder, his comrade immediately sighed, running away. It was a strategic retreat, but there was no way. Lee Seo-yeon grabbed his backpack with one hand. Then she flipped the boy upside down. He started flying sideways. The other guys opened their mouths at the sight. It was a strong gesture with just one hand. Lee So-yeon mumbled that she thought he was trying to run away, worried that the lie would be exposed. This time, let him not run away and behave obediently. Then the girl took out something and showed it to the boys. They looked carefully at what she was holding. The girl exclaimed that she had the proof. Droplets of sweat ran down the boys' faces. Lee So-yeon asked Lee Hanbyul if these guys were bullying him. She asked him not to be afraid but to tell him straight. The girl mumbled that her older sister would protect him. She held a pack of cigarettes in her hand. The little brother immediately stretched out in front of his sister and looked at her with tears in his eyes. Tears began to flow from his eyes. He finally admitted to his sister that they were really bullying him. At that time, Lee So-yeon approached Hosea and motioned for him to continue. Now she asked him to take off his backpack. If he doesn't confess now, she'll find proof any way she can. The girl exclaimed that she would just bury them. Hosu swallowed his saliva convulsively. The boy turned to the girl's brother and immediately called his name. He held on as best he could. Walking up to the man, the kid exclaimed that they were indeed wrong. Hosu returned to his house. His sister immediately attacked him and asked him if he was going to come home late, wherever a middle school student might go. Hosu wasn't at his best. His shoulder was very sore. Droplets of sweat ran down his face, a scarlet trickle of blood from his mouth. He looked at his sister. Then he couldn't take it anymore and just fell face down on the floor. She immediately ran up to him and thought about how that creep dared to do such a thing to her brother. Lee So-yeon asked the girl why she tore her notebook. All the spirit was gone. Now she wouldn't be able to study. The girl exclaimed that it wasn't an excuse. She asked Lee So-yeon to shut up and follow them, unless she wanted to die. The girl's friends agreed with her like a support group. Another girl asked Jung Sabin. She acted like this in middle school, too. She still hasn't gotten rid of her bad habits, and asked her to stop coming to other people's class and making a mess. She sent her back to her classroom. Then Jung Sabin asked what she was talking about. Aren't they in the same class as her? 4th grade. One of the girls was actually in 4th grade. The boy standing next to her was in 3rd grade. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that if they were going to fight, let them come out, since it's too noisy in here. Jung Sabin said that she had already told them to follow her. Lee So-yeon said that she needed to study. Well, it couldn't be helped. Jung Sabin told her to shut up and walk faster. The guys around them were watching what was going on. Something more interesting was about to begin. Lee So-yeon asked the girl when they went outside if she had anything to say to her. Jung Sabin said that she had heard that she had beaten up her brother yesterday. The girl was surprised that she was his sister. Jung Sabin asked, apologizing to her brother Hosu, kneeling down, as long as she still speaks nicely. But Lee So-yeon clenched her fists and replied that she wouldn't do that. Jung Sabin's friends, asking her to do it while she talks nice to her. Lee So-yeon asked the small fish to get lost. Chon Sabin asked the girl to just apologize and end it there. She crossed her arms on her chest, saying that very confidently. I mean, it's really her fault. What did her brother do to get such a beating? She's going to live peacefully after all, having entered high school. The girl kept telling her, but Lee So-yeon wasn't going to give in. That's when Jung Sabin walked up to her and grabbed her hair with her hand. She asked if the girl really wanted to die now. She would just apologize as long as she was asked nicely. Lee So-yeon grabbed her back with both hands around her neck. Then she lifted her knee and kicked the girl right in the stomach. She didn't let go of her hair, but after such a powerful blow, she fell in front of Lee So-yeon on her knees, breathing heavily. Guys from their class and from other classes started peeking carefully through the door watching this picture. They noticed that the girls were fighting very hard. Kim Woo-jun thought they would just grab each other's hair and yell. A classmate asked if it looked like a fight to him. Lee So-yeon walked up to Jung Sabin and started explaining that her brother got it because he deserved it. He bullied her brother first, so he got a little bit of a beating. And she came into her classroom and tore up her notebooks and grabbed her hair. She should be taught a lesson too. That's how Lee So-yeon explained how wrong the girl was. Lee So-yeon gave a classy reception to this girl. She was clearly the strongest in this school. When Chung Sabin fell to her knees in front of her, the fallen woman's friends immediately stepped aside. They were no longer as brave as before. Lee So-yeon explained it like it is, that her brother really got it because he deserved it. He bullied her brother first. That's why he got a small beating. And she shows up in her classroom, rips up all her notebooks, and then grabs her hair. She just needs to be taught a lesson. After the girl explained everything to her, Jung Sabin clenched her fists and started crying hard. Lee So-yeon didn't expect this. She took a few steps back, surprised by the girl's reaction, and there was a huge light-colored building in front of us. The high-rise building seemed to rise up to the heavens. Jung Sabin asked her brother who was the one who beat him up like that. At that moment, the brother replied that he had just fallen. His sister asked him to cut the crap and tell her the truth. But he claimed that what he was saying was the truth. He thought he couldn't tell her that he was beaten by the girl he's in love with, and why they only got caught. He ruined everything. You shouldn't have bullied Lee Hanbyul. The boy thought about how his first impression of her was probably the worst, and he loved her so much. Jung Sabin had asked him to tell the truth after all, but Hosu replied that he would not tell and asked her to go away quickly. Then she clung to her brother and would not leave him until he had told her everything. The girl exclaimed that Lee So-yeon had completely lost her fear. How dare she bully her brother? Hosu said that he was the victim. Jung Sabin clenched her fist and promised that Lee So-yeon would get it from her. She would make her kneel down and beg for forgiveness, and now the girl was just sitting herself on her knees and crying at the pain Lee So-yeon had caused her. Lee So-yeon couldn't understand that this was happening to her. Jung So-bin was crying and telling her opponent that she was bad. Her solar plexus was hurting. Her friends asked her if she was okay. How could she be so mean? The second girl exclaimed that Lee So-yeon is really mean. How can you do that to your friend? The girl replied that she was the first one to grab her hair. The boys continued to watch them. One of them asked the girl that from what she said earlier they were classmates. Does she know this girl Jung So-bin? She asked not to be reminded of that. The previous school would have a harder time finding someone who didn't know about her. She was known for pouncing without caring if it was Sunbae in front of her or Hubei. And one day, she had run into that too. 2 years ago, Jung So-bin was 14 years old. Her friend Han Yeji was 14 years old. Kim Miru was also 14 years old. Oh Seho hoped that from now on they would be present during the cleaning. If they who were responsible for cleaning the classroom didn't show up, the other two would have to do the work for the 5 of them. Then the girl asked if she was responsible for cleaning the corridor. If so, then let those girls who aren't happy come to them. Why would she do that? Just have her bring them here. Oseo explained that they left, saying they were afraid of her and couldn't talk. So she came in their place. Chon Se-bin wondered if she wasn't afraid of them. She put her hands on her hips, looking into the girl's eyes, and she added that apparently they looked too kind. She jabbed her finger at the girl's forehead. Oseho asked her to remove her finger from her forehead. Jung So-bin replied that she didn't want to. What can she do to her? Then she said that she didn't like her from the beginning, seeing that she's been wearing makeup lately. She is purposely acting like this because she knows Appa Kusop is interested in her. If she's not going to date him, then don't give him a chance. So why does she keep receiving text messages from him? She probably wants to gather more guys around her, or was going to use it since Appa Kusop is a good fighter. What a vixen she is. The girl replied that she just felt sorry to ignore him. They heard that in elementary school, she was always walking alone, and she had no friends at all, and now they see that her situation has improved. She entered high school, learned how to use makeup, and even found a boyfriend who fell in love with her. Jung So-bin poked the girl in the forehead with her finger and asked her to know her place as she was very annoying. The girl staggered backward. She dropped the mop from her hands. Then I put my hand on my head. As the finger on my forehead made itself felt, Oseho remembered what her family had told her, not to allow herself to be abused in any way. Jung So-bin then called out to her friends to go out, but that was not the case. The girl was not going to give in. She called out to Jung So-bin. When asked what else she wanted from her, Oseho raised her palm above her and slapped her hard across the cheek. She fell to the floor on her knees with her hand on her cheek. Her friends gathered around her, comforting her. Oseho avenged herself by not letting herself get hurt. Her arm may have been sore, but she felt different, and she came up to Jung So-bin and laughed at her. And the girl wouldn't stop crying. Kim Woo-jun inquired about what she had done. Oseho explained that she couldn't let herself be offended and sit idly by. The little guy immediately praised her. Meanwhile, some guy with his hands in his pockets was walking up the stairs to the next higher floor. 2 guys who were on the set noticed that someone was coming and suggested that they should hide rather. After crying all her tears, Jung So-bin told Lee So-yeon that she was done. She called Appa. Someone like her, he'll break her in no time. The girl asked who Ki-sung was. A guy came into the room and said it was him. He was surprised that Jung So-bin had gotten it from her. The girl asked him why he was so late. She pointed at Lee So-yeon. The boy was very surprised to see the girl. Did she really beat Hosa and Se-bin? Looking at her, he scratched the back of his head and exclaimed that this girl was the size of a mouse. In middle school, she couldn't ask this guy for help because he was in love with Oseho. Jung So-bin was sure that she would finally be dealt with. The boy walked up to the girl and looking at her menacingly asked her to quickly apologize to Sabin and Hosu. Otherwise, he would punish her. Before he could say anything, the girl kicked him to the floor with a powerful kick. Appa Kusop slams into the wall, hitting his back. That was an awesome leg kick. Lee So-yeon blurted out that Jung Se-bin herself had said as if she had taken her own mind and decided to live a quiet life, but ended up calling the dreaded Sunbae and was going to threaten her. Kim Woo-jun, watching from the side, was surprised by this strong kick. She turned out to be much scarier than he thought. She's really bad, just like her brother. If the older sister is behaving like this, what else can the brother learn? Lee So-yeon exclaimed that he should take care of her upbringing first. The girl rolled up her sleeves and began to walk towards Jung So-bin. She screamed in horror. Through the school's window, you could see the sports field outside for play, and the girls were sitting in class talking about something. They were laughing at each other. Their conversation was interrupted by some man who entered the room unexpectedly. The man was much older than them. He said that this was where he belonged. Chung Sabine looked at him with an angry look and shifted her eyebrows to her nose, after which she got up from the chair and, pointing to it, asked the guy to sit down. Everyone was really surprised that Chung Sabin had gotten so much better. What happened to her? And then Lee So-yeon appeared in front of her face. She approached her like an evil monster. The girl clenched her fists and began to approach, glaring fiercely at Chung Sabine. Chung Sabine was terrified and started to back away. She must have been very scared. The boys continued to watch from behind the door. Their faces were also twisted with surprise. Lee! So-yeon lifted the girl up by her hands and started tickling her. Jung Sabin laughed from the tickling. That girl is just the devil. She asked the girl not to pretend. She kicked her foot just lightly, and she was so exaggerated with her reaction. Jung Sabine said that it wasn't easy at all. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that tickling was better. Jung Sabine asked her to just beat her. It brought back memories of how she used to play with her brother. If she misbehaved, then tickling would be expected again. The girl replied that she understood and kept laughing from the tickling. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that if she wasn't going to answer normally, she would add another 5 minutes. All because this is the time to prepare for the exam. It's fun to do things like that. Jung Sabin replied that she won't do that anymore. Kim Woo-jun thought about where the limit of Lee Seo-young's cruelty was. Gradually, the image of him fighting her and defeating her became foggier. The girl asked what he was standing there for. Kim replied that he forgot his textbook. Disciple Kim Woo-jun was asked to return to her seat. From now on, she won't get away with it, so the boy will stand for the rest of the lesson. Kim asked the girl to share her textbook. A classmate called Kim Woo-jun to go to the cafeteria with him. Kim asked Lee So-yeon if she would go with them. The girl immediately agreed, and they all went to the cafeteria in friendship. In the corridor, they got strange looks. Just then, someone's hand appeared in the doorway and began to swiftly open the door. Some girl with pumped-up muscles appeared on the doorstep. She turned to Lee Seo-yeon. The pumped-up girl asked if Lee Seo-young was here. Kim Woo-jun opened his mouth in surprise. That girl who was looking for Lee Seo-yeon was named Woo Ji-eun. She was 16 years old. She called Seo-yeon to talk to her. There was a conversation recently. The guys were talking about Seonbae Seoki-san from second year. They say fainted after being hit by Seo-yeon from third grade. Hasn't that Sunbae been fighting since middle school? The boy replied to the other that that was why it was surprising. And even if you forget about the fact that he's been fighting since middle school, what about the weight class difference? Their conversation was overheard by this girl, Woo Ji-eun. She came up to them and asked them if they were telling the truth. About this, Lee So-yeon defeated Sunbae from the second year. The girl was as powerful as Lee Seo-yeon. If the rumors were true, she thought this girl would be just right. I wonder what she's up to. She stood in front of her and stretched out to her full height, and she thought about how Lee Seo-yeon was so small. She leaned over to ask the girl if she had realistically defeated Sunbae from the second year. But before Lee So-yeon could answer, Woo Ji-eun asked if she could do one test. The girl replied that she could, but that she had to hurry. She had to go to the cafeteria, but asked her to tell me rather what kind of test. Woo Ji-eun clenched her fist and started walking towards the girl, after which she swung her powerful fist at her in an attempt to attack. Lee Seo-yeon immediately dodged the punch just in time, but Woo Ji-eun stepped on her foot. The girl hadn't expected this turn of events. Stepping on her foot, it was like her gimmick. Woo Ji-eun asked Lee Seo-young to stop dodging. After all, she would have to counterattack too. She came at the girl with another punch, but Lee So-yeon dodged it by deflecting backwards, after which she tried to attack the girl back and extended her arm forward. She grabbed Woo Ji-eun's pecs with both hands. Before doing so, she sagged as she dodged the blow. Woo Ji-eun stopped doubting her. She was surprised by the girl's flexibility, even more surprised by the girl's strength. Lee Seo-yeon knocked her to the floor with one move. The boys watched with their mouths open. Kim Woo-jun was shocked by this turn of events. Woo Ji-eun recoiled backwards and landed on one knee, resting her hand on the floor. Lee So-yeon clenched her fists again, preparing to repel the attack or attack. Her opponent was already closing in on the girl and grabbed her by her powerful arm muscles. She approached her, holding her hands, and started laughing right in her face. But she wasn't going to hit her. Smiling at the girl, she asked her to join their fitness class. Everyone was even more surprised by this statement. Kim Woo-jun remained with his mouth open. It was a proposal to join the circle. When the girl grabbed Lee So-yeon's muscles with both hands, the girl was very surprised in response. She didn't realize what Woo Ji-eun was going to do to her. But Woo Ji-eun asked her to join their fitness club. That was quite a statement. That's a good suggestion to join the circle. That's how it's done. Kim Woo-jun couldn't believe his ears. It was like thunder from the sky for him and the others, just like it was for Lee Seo-yeon. She was really so disgusted by the thought of it. Seeing her movements, Woo Ji-young was completely convinced. This kind of thing couldn't be achieved by just practicing. After all, she had been practicing sports for a long time. It was all her hard body and agile movements. She felt how much she loved sports with her own skin. Kim Woo-jun noticed that Lee So-yeon is popular with girls. Lee So-yeon replied that she doesn't do it anymore. Woo Ji-yoon asked her to stop. There's no need to be embarrassed because she's telling her for real. Then how can she explain this body with muscles like real armor? Lee So-yeon replied that she didn't have much muscle either. Kim Woo-jun, listening to this, opened his mouth again in surprise. Doesn't she see herself from the outside? Lee So-yeon said that her body might be fast, but it just remembered the training she did as a child. She had always had it like that. Woo Ji-yoon asked her not to make her laugh. Does she really mean to say that it's just heredity? She meant that exercise is what people should be doing to build muscle and increase in size like her. Who is she trying to fool? Lee So-yeon exclaimed that she doesn't know anything. She just hates exercise to the point of shivering. She added that she wouldn't go to their club. Woo Ji-yoon became angry with her. She clenched her fists, not understanding why this girl was so stubborn. She then turned away from them and mumbled that since the bell for class had rung, she was going to back off temporarily. In the end, they didn't get to go to the cafeteria like they wanted to, all because of that girl. Meanwhile, the bright hot sun was shining outside. The students were going home. Lee So-yeon began to pull herself up, rejoicing that she was finally done. What an exhausting day it had been. She had just started to suggest to the yellow-haired anchovy to go home together when she was interrupted by Oh Seho. She suggested that the kid go to a cafe together to study. Kim Woo-jun agreed. Lee So-yeon was very surprised that he was studying. It was very unusual. She thought he was just a yellow-haired bully. Then the girl decided that she should also go to the library. After all, she had to keep up with him. She took all her will in her fist, but somehow she found herself holding a heavy iron barbell. Woo Ji-yoon was practicing sports. She tried to focus on different movements. When the girl opened the door, Lee So-yeon told her not to even try her damn test again, and threatened to break her. Woo Ji-yoon told someone that she was really worthy of their club. Here, the girl was hit on the head by someone asking how dare she throw the sacred dumbbell. Woo Ji-yoon instantly collapsed to the floor. The girls gathered around her, wondering if she was okay. Lee So-yeon thought about how awkward it was. The member of that girl's club had behaved rudely. A picture appeared. He's Kim Cabin from the second year, head of the fitness club at Gunso High School. When the boys and girls saw this head, their eyes bulged. They wondered if he was really a schoolboy. Kim Woo-jun asked Lee So-yeon if that wasn't her brother. Why is he suddenly wearing clothes? The girl replied that he was actually a brunette. Kim exclaimed that they really do look alike. The guys around them were very surprised. Does Seo-yeon's younger brother really look like that? And why is he walking around with no clothes on? The man bowed in front of them and asked for permission to politely say a few words to Lee So-yeon. He exclaimed that she'd better join the club while he was being nice, so he wasn't going to apologize, and that's not polite at all. The girl mumbled that she had already said she wouldn't go to their club. She hates sports. The man replied that he had heard all about it, and that she didn't do it at all, but nevertheless, amazingly good at keeping such a balanced body. So he was even more eager to take her to the club. He was curious. What kind of masterpiece would be born by training this body to the limit? Lee Seo-yeon started yelling that she didn't want to, but the man wouldn't stop asking her to join their club. The girl stood her ground and asked him not to block her way. He asked what he could do to get her to join them. Lee So-yeon replied that she would think about it if he defeated her. The girl decided to just nail him and make sure no one would even think of joining the sports club. The man was surprised that she was asking him to fight with a girl. That's not manly at all. Only the last human scum would do such a thing. The expression on Kim Woo-jun's face somehow turned bad. He actually slumped his head down. The man exclaimed that anyone who even imagines this is a total scumbag. Guys like that should have their junk ripped off, which offends girls. Lee Seo-yeon said that if you think about it, it's really disgusting. Even she would rip his ass off and turn him into a girl. That it had become again with Woo-jun. He turned pale, then blushed and lowered his gaze, feeling guilty. The next day came. It was clear bright with a beautiful blue sky. The big man instructed his comrade to take Lee Seo-yeon alive. They will definitely catch her. Whatever happens, she'll be a member of their club. So the man decided to bring the girl to them after all. Lee So-yeon tried to go roundabout even at school because they were guarding her everywhere. She looked out from behind the door. Her friend asked the girl if she was okay, but the girl tried to freeze herself off from everyone from that club. They were guarding her at every turn, trying to grab her by luring her to their place. Lee. So-yeon told her friend that she barely survived and thanked her. Everyone thought that she was always exercising. Soo-hee said that she didn't expect Lee So-yeon to hate exercise so much. The girl explained that she hated them to the point of shivering. In fact, Dad had been overprotective of her and her brother since they were little, and with simple exercises he tried to make them stronger so they could protect themselves. Threw them off a cliff to teach them how to fall properly. He said they could survive by using the correct way to fall, which he taught them. He made me pull up a tree with roots and squat with it, several times in a row. Could it be that even with their combined strength they couldn't do it? Would they be able to defend themselves with such weak muscles? Sparring with a bear, to use the techniques learned from the father and defeat the bear. When the girl said it was too much, the father asked them not to pretend. Even kids their age do this in taekwondo class, and they can do it. It all seemed like simple exercises to her dad, but from that day on, she couldn't take it anymore and left training. She hated sports. Soo-hee thought about how much this girl had been through in her life, and yet she was a little envious of her. When asked why, Soo-hee explained that she wants to go on a diet, but because of her weak will, she always gives up halfway through. She wishes someone would make her exercise. Lee So-yeon asked if she had anything to lose. Talking to Seho more often lately, she realized that her legs were a bit thick. Of course she's skinny. She wants to have that skinny body too. She doesn't even have a belly, and she's jealous of it. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that Soo-hee could do it. She asked her not to lose hope. Soo-hee wondered why she was suddenly comforting her. The girl let out a tear and thanked Lee So-yeon. Woo Ji-yoon suddenly appeared in front of her. The girl exclaimed that she had finally found her. Lee So-yeon immediately rushed away from the place. She wanted to get away quickly, but Woo Ji-yoon told her to wait. She explained that she didn't have to join the club. The girls immediately glanced at her. Woo Ji-yoon asked not to leave, but just to talk. She didn't want to force her into the club, and she's not going to eavesdrop, just overhear their conversation. Naturally, considering that Lee So-yeon doesn't want to join them, she just thought the girl was playing hard to get. Looking at the state of her body, she naturally thought that she liked sports and exercise. The girl apologized to her for drawing a conclusion from her appearance alone. Lee So-yeon asked what was so unusual about her body. She's the epitome of ordinary. Woo Ji-young looked at her with a strange look. Didn't she really understand? She still didn't seem to have gotten rid of her doubts. She just wanted them to get girls too. Their club's all dirty guys now, that's how it looked from the outside. Lee So-yeon wished her luck in finding a girl to join the club. Woo Ji-yoon said that there was no need for that. Lee So-yeon was looking somewhere to the side. She couldn't figure out where this girl had disappeared to. A friend said she was nearby. They looked for the girl. Soo-hee turned her head to the side and then suddenly screamed. Apparently it must have noticed something there. It was Coach Woo Ji-yoon and a few other guys. That's a turnaround. The man reached his arms out to the girl and began to congratulate her on joining the club. But Suki put her hands forward, pushing this man and his cronies away. And here before us is a wide, beautiful street with green trees and brightly colored alleys. There was some kid walking down this alley. From afar, he waved and apologized. He explained that he was a little late. The boy was sitting on a bench with a book in his hands. He said that if he was late, he could at least pretend to be sorry. He had an exam coming up after all. The kid exclaimed that he had a bet with Kim Woo-jung, but ended up losing and now has to wear a girls' school uniform. He heard that he got the nickname Monster in a skirt. The guy called him an idiot and asked how he could be a beaten first year. Maybe his body just stiffened up after he suddenly started acting like a model student. The guy said it's not like that and he'll keep wearing the skirt. It's all a kind of atonement for the stupidity of yesteryear. The guy in the female form asked me to stop talking about it. Isn't he going to fight with Kim Woo-jun? The boy replied that he's a quick thinker, probably because he's a good student now. He asked a friend what Kim Woo-jung's style was. The guy replied that his style was very emotional and reckless. It feels like just fighting without worrying about fighting techniques. To that extent, there are too many rumors about how good he is at fighting. His real weapon is rage. Woo-jun doesn't care if his entire body is wounded. With his rage, he simply knocks his opponent down and wins with that alone. That's a tough guy. The friend replied that he was absolutely as good as him in perseverance. He seems like a pretty interesting guy. Now he feels even more eager to fight. The uniformed guy replied that it's up to him to fight or not, but only after the school exams. He asked me not to make a fuss at school. A friend asked what had happened. Before, he would have immediately said not to even think about fighting. The boy replied, Who is he to tell others what to do? Then he went to school. The friend realized that he was no longer in charge of the bullies at school. The boy replied that it was so. But the friend asked him to say only one thing before he left, the opinion of someone who's experienced it firsthand. If he and that guy got into a fight, who does he think would win? The guy in the girls' school uniform hesitated and paused. He turned to him. Meanwhile, we have Kinso High School in front of us. It's basically a wild place with natural selection. Though along with Yang Soo-hyun's appearance, the school's most important thugs have been re-educated, meaning the reborn bullies. He was beaten by the new leader Kim Woo-jung. He stopped following them, and under the influence of bandits who got free again. Kinso High School must be going back to his old life again. Kim Woo-jung kicked the guy's leg and asked him if he thought he was just going to stand idly by and watch the actions of this brat. Just let him get caught in his arms again. With him, they won't be re-educated like Yang Soo-hyung. They'll just die immediately. The boys realized that this guy was also a villain. They turned their heads fearfully in his direction. Kim Woo-jung told those scum to get lost. The trace of those guys is gone. The guy was lying on the floor of the hallway. Kim Woo-jung walked over to him and picked up the glasses that were lying around. The boy thanked Woo-jung and began to rise from his knees, putting on his glasses. Kim Woo-jung immediately thought about it. He perked up his ears and just stared at the boy. He was asked if he was badly hurt, but the guy said he was fine. Not far away was Oh Seho. She walked over to Kim Woo-jung. He was squatting. The girl looked at him smiling. She was thinking about something. Next to her, Lee So-yeon appeared next to her. She asked her why she was smiling so much. She asked her to go to the cafeteria because she was hungry. But by the way, Suki is not going there with them lately. Something must have happened. Lee. So-yeon remembered how she was pushing back with all her arms against that man, who had made her squat for more than a dozen times. The girls told her to hang in there. She's been working out as hard as she can. Lately, she has been struggling to watch her diet. A kid told a classmate that they say they're showing a movie at the club this time. Does he know what kind of movie? The boy replied that he didn't know. He heard it was some kind of weird art house. It will probably be very boring. He will definitely be asleep and asks not to be woken up. A friend asked what he would do with the written feedback. The kid laughed and replied that he would write it off. Kim Woo-jung asked the boy if he was from a judo club. The boy looked at him in response and wondered if he remembered it. Kim exclaimed that if there was anyone strong among his acquaintances, let him introduce him to him. The boy replied that he didn't want to. He's going to fight someone again. The guy didn't go to the literature club, he went to the anime club. They showed each other obscene gestures and told each other to get lost. After that, the guys went their separate ways, acting all tough. The guy who said goodbye to Kim Woo-jung saw Soo-hee and thought about her being at the health club now. That doesn't sound like her at all. Come to think of it, even though they go out together a lot, he's never really talked to her much. I mean, she's pretty reserved. I don't know how to put it. It's like when in a large group of people they communicate normally, but when left alone, it becomes awkward. It wouldn't be good to keep going on like this, so we'll take the chance to say hello to her and chat. The boy reached forward and waved to the girl, but for some reason she didn't hear him. Then he asked if she was going to the club, and he added that they were going in the same direction. When the boy put his hand on her shoulder, the girl was apparently very frightened and grabbed onto it immediately. She fell to the ground out of fear, or maybe pain, it's unclear what it was. A girl dressed in a kimono appeared behind the boy. She asked what the sound was. When she saw the girl on the floor, she exclaimed that he was a murderer. Young Shi-hyun used judo technique and attacked the man. The boy started yelling that she had misunderstood. He just wanted to talk to her. The girl screamed, "How could you kill a man because you wanted to talk? It's a crazy serial killer." Suki came to the gym and said hello to Woo Ji-yoon. The girl reciprocated her greeting and appreciated the fact that she finally came. The young sprout of their club, Kwon Soo-hee. Today she would be especially expected to practice again. She's going to take charge and make her body powerful. She's actually here to lose weight, not to make her body powerful. The girl exclaimed that she should start practicing already. Suki asked the trainer if she could take a break today. Her muscles were very sore. The coach replied that this could not be the case. They based it on Woo Ji-yoon's regular exercises, so it should be easy. That's the point. Their bodies are similar. They should have given her a beginner's exercise. Woo Ji-yoon calmly walked upwards, smiling cheekily. The girl was very annoyed, and why they find it so interesting. That's what Woo Jun thought while lying on his desk. He thought that about his fellow anime watchers. Here it's been a few weeks. Here it is. Lee So-yeon grimaced and covered her face with her hands. She was behaving unusually. Summer had arrived at Kinzo's school. There were trickles of sweat running down the girl's cheeks. She must have been very hot. She thought about getting to class as soon as possible. She wanted to run to the air conditioner and feel the cold air. She barely made it to the door and started frantically opening it, just to get a breath of fresh air. When she opened the door, the girl exclaimed that she was alive after all. A smile appeared on her face. She saw Kim Woo-jun behind her. She said hello to the yellow-haired anchovy. The boy asked her to step back and not block his passage. She was surprised at her companion's tone. He was serious and very strict. The girl wanted to go on, but then she noticed a boy entering the classroom. He waved and said hello to Kim Woo-jun. He wished him a good morning. But Kim Woo-jun, when he entered the classroom, hung his briefcase on the hook and put his head on the desk. Lee So-yeon asked if he was going to study for the exam, and thought about how Anchovy probably has those days. The boy replied that he was a guy. That's very strange, and it can't be. After all, Kim Woo-jung was perfectly fine a while ago. What could have happened to him? The kid continued to lie head down with his arms crossed in front of him on the desk. And so the day passed. It was getting a little darker outside. Huge high-rise buildings and long, light-colored streets spread out before us. There were some guys walking down the road. One of them was talking about how Jung Shi-hyun from the judo club had knocked their newcomer Soo-hee down. The other one asked why Soo-hee didn't tell them about it. She's always quiet. Must have been embarrassing to say. How dare he touch a member of their club? They're just judo assholes. They were stopped by some guy with a cigarette in his teeth and his hand in his pocket. He asked the boys if they were from Kunso's school. He wanted to ask them a question. The boys asked who he was. The boy explained that he was An Do-hyun from Gyumong High School. Do they know anything about Kim Woo-jung? He explained that he was the leader from their school. Do they know anything about him? Any ticklish rumors would be good, or family stories. Then one of the boys asked what the purpose of such interest was. The kid immediately cut off that there was no reason for them to know. Again, he asked if they knew or not. Let them say only this. The guys were getting really annoyed with this kid. They looked at him with slanted eyes. And the boy, continuing to keep his hands in his pockets, exclaimed for them to stop wasting time and called them baldies. He kept his cigarette in his teeth. He kept staring in their direction. Don't they have anything to say to him? The boy called them bullies, not the least bit afraid that they were outnumbered and strong. He said that what they knew was enough. The boys asked what was enough. This kid kept his hands in his pockets and lifted his leg to make a move. One of the guys had already flown down to the ground. It was a powerful blow that sent him straight to the floor. The kid stepped on his head with his foot and explained that all he had to do from now on was to get that information out. The guy continued to lie on the ground, curled up, not realizing that this had just happened. After that, the three of them were lying on the cold asphalt. The boy asked if they wanted to talk. Clenching his hands, he reached for them with those hands. Then he lifted one of them by the scruff of the neck. He asked me to tell you sooner, unless he really wants to die. The guy replied that they really didn't know. They just got angry and lied. The boy asked then to at least name someone who knew something about him. A classmate from middle school or high school, the man next door, anyone. He looked at the boy he had lifted into the air by the scruff of his neck with an angry, savage stare. If you go back a little bit, the guy was taking a little boy on a swing. The one shouted with joy, turning his head in his direction. Woo-jun was asked if he was having fun. The boy replied that it was fun. But his cell phone in his pocket was vibrating. It seems like someone keeps calling. It's basically nothing. It's a call you don't have to answer, the guy said, putting his hands out in front of his face. The boy who was sitting on the swing wondered how he knew. If you get a call about something important, the guy clenched his fists, and the phone wouldn't stop vibrating in his pocket. And really, it could be something important. But by the way, the kid said he's so cool. Gets so many calls. If his brother's popular at his school. The boy continued to swing on the swing, and his brother was already on the phone. He became very serious. After he talked, he went over to his little brother. He took him by the head and said that it was indeed an important call. He asked Woo-jun what he would do without him. Then he explained to his brother that he had to go. A very urgent matter had come up, and so the boy shoved his hands in his pockets and slung his backpack over his shoulders and walked away. Kim Woo-jun was lying on his desk, apparently remembering everything that had happened to him in his childhood. Someone asked So-yeon if she was friends with Woo-jun. He was answered that he was too afraid of her, and wanted the guy to relay the teacher's words instead. While the boy was lying on the desk, he had already been approached by Lee So-yeon. She poked him in the back with her finger and called him a yellow-haired anchovy. He asked what she wanted him to do. The girl realized he was asleep. She said that the teacher had asked him to come to the teacher's lounge. When asked why, Lee So-yeon replied that she had no way of knowing. Did he really do something wrong again? The boy looked at her with a serious look and said nothing. He just turned and walked forward. The girl accidentally grazed his shoulder. He walked on, grabbing his shoulder with his hand. She looked at him and wondered what was wrong with him. The boy walked into the teacher's lounge. When he approached the desk, the man asked if the teacher was joking. Kim Woo-jun replied that he did not. The teacher asked why the first answer choice in the test was poked all over the place then. The boy said that he was sleepy. The man asked what was the manner of speech with the teacher. What does he do at night? Another said that they were at the age when they watched erotic movies all day long, and advised them not to do it too often, so they don't rub it all over themselves. The teacher asked him to shut up. There are girls here too. Kim asked if they had nothing else to say, if he could go. The teacher said no. After all, he hadn't said everything yet. From now on, he asked him to do the test properly. He asked him to do it properly from now on, and if they tried to poke one more time, he would be finished. He doesn't even talk to students he has no hope for. He got almost everything right on the other tests. Why would such a smart kid do something like this? Isn't fighting gonna feed him in the future? Did he really think the teacher didn't know anything? He'd heard the rumors that were going around, and he thought the kid had gotten smart. The teacher asked another boy to call the students who were late yesterday. He told them to stay after school, and they ran away. Jae-yun, if he's the headmaster, should keep an eye on the boys. What would he do if someone like Kim Woo-jun showed up in their class too? The boy replied that such a person would not appear in their class. This whole conversation was heard by Kim Woo-jun. He looked at him with a slanted glance. The headman, after speaking, exclaimed that he understood everything, and in this case went. When Kim Woo-jun turned around to look at the boy, the teacher shouted at him. "What's he doing here?" Shoving his shoulder right in front of the teacher. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he had just pushed him. The teacher said that he was bickering again. Does he really mean to say that Jae-yun would do such a thing right in front of a teacher? The exams would be over soon. So even if he was going to make trouble, the teacher advised him to do it after the exams, and be sure to solve the problems on the test, not just poke around. And now it was getting light. The bright light bulbs of the houses were shining. Kim Woo-jun was already approaching the house. Opening the door, he began to walk inside. His sister noticed that he had already returned. She was sitting at the table with a bottle of beer and an appetizer. He mumbled that she was drinking again. She could ruin her health that way. She doesn't even know how to drink. The sister replied that she would definitely live longer than him. Kim Woo-jun said that he would take some snacks from her. The girl yelled back at her brother when he would get a grip on his own mind already. The boy almost dropped the food on the floor. Sister kept asking whether he was going to become a professional wrestler. Until when would he go and fight? Time would fly by quickly. Just a little longer and he would become an adult. He has to live his life. How long will he remember the past? Kim Woo-jun said that when she's drunk, she always starts it. They decided not to bring it up. He asked her to drink another bottle of juice better and go to bed. His sister looked at him with a questioning look. Her cheeks were red. The boy finally went into his room and threw his briefcase as far away from him as possible, after which he plumped himself down on his bed in his clothes. He spread his arms out to his sides, and he thought about how sick he was of everything. He stared at the ceiling with a blank stare. The kid decided he was at the end of his rope. A little more and he'd just explode. Meanwhile, Lee So-yeon put her hands in the air and started shouting that the exams were over. Now it's okay to have fun. A friend asked the girl if she passed the exam normally. She asked a counter-question. Who gave her permission to ask had she not been taught manners, to respect the right to privacy? Does she really want to die? The girl immediately apologized. Lee So-yeon asked the anchovy girl how he passed the exam. Kim Woo-jun asked the girl not to talk to him, but she was very surprised. After all, they were comrades. She rubbed her nose with her hand. The friend observing this mumbled that she had answered her in this way, and she herself in turn asks, and so they all went outside, happy that the exams were finally over. Suddenly someone appeared in front of them. The boy asked who it could be. Lee So-yeon replied that he must not be from their school, but it looks like he's smoking. Probably some kind of bully or maybe a psycho. The kid didn't stop smoking and looked in Kim Woo-jun's direction. He noticed the blonde man in front of him, and a mole under his eye and a piercing. He kept his cigarette in his teeth, but when he noticed these signs, he threw it away, and exclaimed that he'd found the kid. After all, blonde hair, a mole under his eye, and piercings are all signs of someone he's been looking for so long. He even asked the guys he beat up recently, and now he's finally found them. Kim Woo-jun inquired who else he was. His gaze was very stern and serious. The boy was already heading towards Kim Woo-jun. He ran towards him. Then he decided to attack. He thrust his knee forward, grinning in a snide grin. Everyone around them opened their mouths in amazement. The comrades had not expected such a turn of events. The unknown guy began to perform holds, waving his legs and arms toward Kim Woo-jung. After that, he did a twirl and tried to hit the kid, but he dodged in time. After flying over himself, the boy got to his feet, but he never managed to hit Kim. Lee. So-yeon and the rest of the guys watched in horror. They hadn't expected this to happen. The guy exclaimed that Kim Woo-jun was very agile, but he didn't come to play catch-up. Kim Woo-jun threw an angry look at him and called the kid names. He asked who he was. The guy replied that he was An Do-hyun from Gumong High School. He decided to get straight to the point. He asked the boy to fight him now. He wanted to see the ability of the leader of the Kunso school. Kim Woo-jun asked him to get the hell out of here. He explained that he wasn't in the mood to fight right now. The boy was surprised. After all, he was different from what he had heard about him. Isn't he crazy about fighting? Kim Woo-jun replied that he didn't know anything and asked him to look for someone else. But Do-hyun didn't stop. He said that he wanted to fight him, but Kim Woo-jun said he didn't care. The kid called Kim a complete idiot after that. The comrades were surprised that Kim Woo-jun didn't want to fight for the first time. What Lee Hyun-sung died because of his weakness. Kim Woo-jun continued to walk away. The kid's friend really wondered how that guy even knew about such a thing. He inquired of the newcomer. Where had he even heard of such a thing? The boy answered as if he'd heard it was the name of Hyung, who had played with him as a child. Imagine that. An outcast hanging out with the neighbor boy. Does he know why he was an outcast? There's really no particular reason. He just couldn't defend himself without asking for help. He's a wuss. And he didn't even try to stand. He was always running away. And in the end, the best he could come up with was to kill himself. This whole thing was ridiculous. Kim Woo-jun listened to this guy and got really angry. He started calling me names, but then Lee... So-yeon grabbed the boy's hand. She took a firm grip on him and wondered who he was to say such serious things. The girl asked him to apologize. He gave her a scornful look and asked who else she was, what she was doing. Outsiders should stay out of it. The boy begged her to let go, but then he realized that for some reason he couldn't get out of her strong arms. Just then, someone else appeared in front of them. He called out to this guy named An Do-hyun. It was a guy in a woman's uniform. He exclaimed that he told him not to make a fuss at school. In front of them was Sunbae, who loved women's outfits. Lee Seo-yeon immediately let go of his hand. Do-hyun replied that he had just come to declare war on him, and he wasn't going to fight right here. Lee Seo-yeon realized that apparently Sunbae knew this jerk. Sunbae mumbled that declaring war or anything else was something that should be handled outside of school. It was so annoying. Do-hyun exclaimed that he had already come after the exams were over as he had requested. And what's he always pointing out to him? It's past the time when he was cool. Or he still thinks he's the head of the school. Because he's playing the role of a model student, his body went limp and he ended up losing to some freshmen. He knows it, doesn't he? That he's stronger than all of them right now. And they know better than anyone that he just hates it when someone weaker than him tries to order him around. Just then, someone's hand appeared between them. It was Kim Woo-jun. He held out a yellow piece of paper, and he explained to the guys that it was his phone number. He asked Do-hyun to decide on a location and text him. If he wants it that badly, he promised to finish him off during the fight. The boy immediately calmed down and smiled. He exclaimed that this was a great solution. He'd like to rip it right now. But he'll bitch because he doesn't seem to be in the best shape. He needs to be in great shape to have any fun at all. Do-hyun asked the kid to come back tomorrow in the same frantic state, so as not to disappoint him. Kim Woo-jung's company looked after the boy who was leaving. Lee? So-yeon exclaimed, where could such a jerk come from here? But the boy stopped her. Kim Woo-jun asked why she had gotten involved recently. The girl replied that it was because he said bad things. Kim Woo-jun said that it's none of her business, so he asked her not to interfere. Lee So-yeon didn't expect such a harsh and rude answer from him. His friend asked what was wrong with him. After all, the girl had just sided with him. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he never asked for that, and explained that he was very tired. After that, the kid said goodbye to his friends, and went about his personal business. He thought about how that guy could have heard about Hyun. Is it possible that Jung Shi-hyun told him about it? But there's no such thing. Shi-han can be trusted. Then how did he know all this? The kid was walking down the road and kept thinking about it. He clenched his fists looking down. This guy whose name he doesn't even know. Clenching his fist, Kim Woo-jun thought that he wouldn't dwell on it. He would just find out everything tomorrow. And this An Do-hyun guy, he'll take him down for sure, because he was confident in his abilities. The next day came. Kim Woo-jun was already there as they had agreed. Do-hyun exclaimed that he was happy to see him. The kid responded by asking him to stop talking. He asked who he heard about Hyun-seong from. Do-hyun promised to tell me if he beat him, but only if he really defeated him. That's how they agreed. Kim Woo-jun, stripping off his clothes, asked him to start their fight soon. Do-hyun immediately smiled widely and exclaimed that he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The kid's clothes flew to the side. He too decided to undress in order to start a fight, and then their jackets flew off into the distance. The guys were serious. Do-hyun began to approach his opponent to strike. He was ready to attack, but the opponent was not a weakling and lifting his foot up decided to attack first, and so Do-hyun flipped over and was already flying a few meters backwards, falling down. He fell to the ground, grabbing his side with one hand and leaning on the ground with the other. Kim Woo-jun didn't stop. He moved closer to the boy to deliver the next blow, and so the anchovy did the twirl again. He didn't let the guy get to his feet. With one deft movement of his foot, he tried to kick him. This time the kid dodged and gave him a scornful look. Apparently, he decided to use his move this time. Kim Woo-jun glared back at him, and with a swift kick of his foot again, he hit the guy right in the chest. He wasn't going to stop and accelerated again and started running up to him. The boy took a swing, but Do-hyun was able to dodge it with lightning speed. The fight continued. Do-hyun didn't expect the opponent to be really so strong. He stood in a fighting stance and exclaimed while wiping the sweat off his face that Kim Woo-jun is really crazy. Kyum inquired about his name. An Do-hyun from Gyumang High School. Then he popped. The kid explained that he'd already been annoyed about a bunch of things lately, and he decided to annoy him even more and fight. Kim Woo-jun decided to attack his opponent again. He was very angry and ready to tear this guy to pieces. He hit him right in the face with his fist, then jumped up, did a leg spin, and the guy got kicked in the head. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he was done for today. The boy began to wipe the blood from his mouth and nose. He was already pretty weak. He remembered asking Sunbae if they got into a fight, which one of them would win. The boy had answered that he didn't know. But one thing he was sure of was that it would be Kim Woo-jun. He's very dangerous when he's pissed off. During the fight, Sunbae thought he was the one who was winning, but at some point all that was left in him was the desperation not to lose in any way. Both he and the guy, they were definitely exhausted by now. That was the first time he'd ever seen a man move like that. A stubborn fighting spirit that fights to the death to put the enemy down. Though ashamed to admit it, he was scared at that moment. Of course, the desire not to lose the argument was also great. Do-hyun was already completely exhausted, but he didn't give up. He started coughing a lot. Sunbae recalled that he fought at the end just to survive, not to win. Do-hyun exclaimed that Kim Woo-jun has passed, and he's a lot of fun to fight with. The kid offered to fight him to the death. Then he called him a yellow-haired anchovy. Kim asked where he had heard that nickname. Of course it was Sunbae. He told the guy that Kim Woo-jung's nickname was yellow-haired anchovy, which of course made Do-hyun laugh. Meanwhile, Lee So-yeon had a grudge against Kim Woo-jun. She remembered the kid telling her it was none of her business, and asked her to stay out of it. She had taken his side, and he had told her that. The girl decided never to help that insolent yellow-haired anchovy again. She didn't care if that bully beat her up or not. Lee So-yeon punched the wall with her fist. A friend came up to her and asked her what she was doing. The girl said she was doing nothing and laughed. He asked if she was single. Lee So-yeon replied that she was and asked why he was asking. The kid explained that he had something to tell her, and now they were in a coffee shop with a hot Americano on the table. He asked if she'd like an Americano. He will pay so she can order whatever she wants. Lee. So-yeon replied that it's fine and she likes ice Americano. The girl asked what he wanted to tell her. She grimaced and mumbled that it was bitter coffee, but she said she loved him, but she didn't say she'd ever tried it. The kid started telling me that this story is about Kim Woo-jung. The fight between Woo-jun and Do-hyun was certainly intimidating. They fought for a long time as if it were a fight to the death. It was a very brutally interesting fight, since both guys were strong and brave. But more than that, Kim Woo-jun was too reckless and even more dangerous than that guy. Do-hyun didn't give up for a second either. His mouth was already dripping with blood, but he continued to fight. They did all kinds of things to each other. They threw each other to the floor and punched each other in the face. Kim Woo-jun was ruthless towards his opponent. He directed his strong fists towards the boy. He didn't have time to dodge, and he often had to get punched in the face. Of course, sometimes Kim Woo-jun got hit too. The guys were both exhausted, but the fight continued. Kim looked at the boy and wondered why he looked like he couldn't care less. He wasn't even the least bit tired. I mean, he'd been hit several times in a row, and he was just standing there flexing his muscles. He asked Kim to do a better job. He said he wanted to know who he heard the story about the moron from. He said he'd only tell if he beat him. Or maybe he didn't want to find out. Kim Woo-jun asked him not to dare call that man a retard anymore. The guy stared at him with a smile on his face and blood on his lips. Rubbing the back of his head, he wondered what to call that guy then. Maybe scum. He angered his opponent even more. Kim Woo-jun tried to attack again. He clenched his fists and headed toward Do-hyun. He grabbed his arm in an attempted move. Again, a hard, long struggle ensued. They waved their arms without giving up. He's been craving it for so long. This fight without any rules or restrictions. The boy craved the ground drenched in fresh scarlet blood. The pleasures of winning a fight to which all the strength strepto brawl has been applied. Kim Woo-jun was sitting on the floor. The opponent asked him why he was sitting down. He wondered if he was going to get up. He let him beat himself up properly, whether he was telling the truth or not. Kim Woo-jun wiped the drops of blood from his mouth. He got into a fighting stance and asked to be ready from now on. After all, he wasn't going to spare him. The boy stood in the rack, being very confident. He exclaimed that he could quench his thirst. The guy's fist was already covered in blood. Droplets of scarlet blood dripped from it, hitting the floor. Do-hyun remembered his fights as a child. His eyes were scared, but full of eagerness for battle. He scattered all the boys on the floor. Afterward, he sat down next to them tiredly. He wanted to be a strong man. As a kid, the kid was always alone. He had no mother. His father hardly ever came home because of his work, although he did have an older sister. But at that time, she was just in the midst of adolescence and did not pay attention to him. No matter how much my brother asks me to play with him, Big Sister is on the phone. She said she'd play with him later, and on the phone she was explaining to someone that it was no big deal. Just a little brother. The kid exclaimed that basically he wasn't always completely alone. After all, he had a little brother named Hyun Seong. Even though they were complete strangers and didn't share a drop of blood, he always took care of him. To him, he wasn't just an acquaintance of Hyun's from the neighborhood, but a parent and a friend he could trust. This particular kid he'd known since he was a kid. This kind of person to him is very important in his life. Hyung, that boy died. That's how I remember him. That boy died because of some bastards who were just messing with him. A whole crowd of bastards gathered at the big rock, beating him up. They pushed him off the huge high cliff. The ones who drove him to the brink of the abyss of life. Took the life of a good little boy. He hated scum like that. He hated them with all his heart. And from that day on, he pondered every day. He never stopped thinking about it. He thought back to what had happened, what they had done to that boy who had been very important in his life. The boy thought about what he would do to never see them again. There was pain and disappointment in the boy's eyes. In the end, the answer was simple, so much so that there was no reason to even think about it all day long. That's what he'd thought before. Just a boy who decided he needed to get stronger as soon as possible. He doesn't need to turn a blind eye to the situation. He needs to become so strong that no one can compete with him, so that no one would dare to do anything that made him nervous. If no one wants to be beaten up like he is, you need to watch your behavior. If they catch his eye again, he'll kill them. All of this is possible when you're strong and intimidating, when sparks fly around and there is enough courage for someone who would avenge their loved ones. Do-hyun's fist went straight into Kim Woo-jun's stomach. The boy coughed. He instantly flew off to the side, continuing to cough. It was a very powerful blow. Do-hyun noticed that the boy had a horrified expression on his face. He asked if he wanted to take a break. Kim Woo-jun wiped his face with his hand and asked him to shut up. What's he doing waving his weak fists around? The guy put his hand on his head and replied that he wasn't going to let him rest anyway. He really doesn't get tired at all, even when he hits him so hard. Kim Woo-jun swung his fists and legs straight at the guy's head and stomach. Even when it had already been so long since the fight first, this guy still didn't get tired in any way. Even as Kim Woo-jun was throwing multiple punches to the head and body with his legs, the kid's already thinking he's definitely tired. He's just pretending like he doesn't care. After all, this guy is human too. There's no way he'll never get tired or break down. No matter how much Kim Woo-jun beat him, this guy kept smiling back at him. Kim Woo-jun kept dodging his punches, but he had to get hit too. He was already exhausted, and once again he dodged a punch from this formidable guy. He wondered what was wrong with him. How can this guy smile in such a dire situation? Kim Woo-jun flew off to the side again. He couldn't understand how Do-hyun could move so fast. His musings were not ending. He couldn't find the kid's weakness. Do-hyun seemed to revive again and again, trying to attack him. He managed to dodge, but when he got hit in the head, he immediately got up and attacked further. Kim Woo-jun notices that this guy is enjoying the fight, enjoys this fight so much that he is willing to devote his life to the thrill of any fight. A strong and intimidating man that no one dares look down on. All this time he was just playing a guy whose goal is to fight forever to become him. And so Kim Woo-jun got punched in the face again. He was thrown back by the kid's hard blow. He didn't feel he could beat him, one whose real purpose and truth are eternal battles. Kim Woo-jun fell backwards onto the floor again. He flew far, far away after the guy's strongest punch, but he did not give up. The boy rose to his feet again and began to approach the enemy. Do-hyun wondered why he was lying down and asked him to get up. Shouldn't he lay him down and find out who told him about his past? Where had all his boldness gone? The guy asked him to get up. He could keep fighting, couldn't he? Kim Woo-jun thought that this guy really is some kind of monster. He looks like he's invincible. Lee So-yeon and her strong friend who she was running away from, who wanted him to drag her to the fitness club, must have been resting against this guy. Kim Woo-jun didn't see or hear anything. He froze as if in some sort of suspense. He didn't understand much about this fight. For him today, it was as if everything had stopped. And so another blow from his opponent flew right into his face. This guy was amazing. It was like he lived to fight. He asked Kim Woo-jun why the kid was frozen. He thought he had become strong enough. Do-hyun tried to hit him and asked him to move faster, and not just to dodge, but to attack. He even confessed once and decided that there was no opponent for him anymore. Do-hyun exclaimed that he was just starting to fight. That's how it was. But Kim Woo-jun was already weak. The enemy was hitting him with blow after blow. This guy isn't just a crazy guy enjoying a fight. Kim thought for sure he'd blocked him. It's like his arms are going to fall off. That guy has stamina, speed, fortitude, and fighting spirit. That monster has the same weapons he has, and yet he excels at everything. His perfect technique. The opponent began to call out to Kim Woo-jung. He lifted his foot on the wall, and standing with his foot on the wall, the boy smiled. He said he was enjoying the fight. Kim Woo-jun wondered what the monster was babbling about now. He waited for Do-hyun to answer. The one in turn explained that their meeting was true destiny. Does he understand this thirst? He too feels the hunger for a fight when his own life is at stake. He thought there were only boring weaklings left in this world, and no one who could stand up to him. But right in front of him, there he is now. The guy said he's just like Kim Woo-jun. Recently he called him a monster. If he is a monster, then who is Kim Woo-jun? He asked him to fight to the death. Kim Woo-jun was already completely exhausted, and the guy asked to fight between them, two identical monsters. Kim Woo-jun realized that this guy and third-year head Yang Soo-hyun saw the same thing in him. But he's different. He's different from those bullies. Why do they think differently? And why he too depends on the thrill of battle. Why he feels a sense of kinship within himself. Why does he always want to fight with Lee Seo-yeon's girlfriend, who's not bad at all? It's really weird, isn't it? That's probably not the reason he's fighting. Do-hyun accelerated, clenching his powerful fist. He was already close to the boy's face. Kim Woo-jun didn't have time to dodge. His fist hit him in the face. Meanwhile, it was already evening outside. Rain droplets dripped down on the green leaves. Bright yellow lights were on in all the high-rise buildings. It was warm outside, but it was drizzling a little. People stood in the street with umbrellas. Who were at home. Who were walking along the streets on their important business. Slowly, people were putting down their umbrellas as the rain was already subsiding. Here it was over. Kim Woo-jun was already completely exhausted and squatted down. Do-hyun asked what he was doing. All he's been doing lately is getting punched in the face and not answering. I wonder if his morale is already broken. He has to find out who told him everything. He has to defeat him. He's not even mad at him. Is he as weak as Lee Hun-seong? Kim Woo-jun said that even if he provokes him, it's useless. Afterward, he admitted that he lost. He added that he didn't want to fight anymore. Do-hyun asked the kid to cut the crap. Is he really only capable of doing that and wants to end the fight? All this time he's been fighting a scum whose spirit is so easily broken. He could go on. Just like him. The kid shouted that he was still alive. This means that it is necessary to continue the battle. He asked his opponent to defeat him sooner rather than later. But Kim Woo-jun really didn't want to fight anymore. Why couldn't that guy stop? There's a limit. He asked him to calm down. But Do-hyun clenched his fist again and started attacking the kid. Apparently he didn't want to stop. There was no end to this fight. Then suddenly someone came up to them and grabbed the guy eager for a fight by the arm. The man mumbled that his chatter was getting annoying. I can't believe he's jammed up. But seeing him get beaten up made me feel bad. Who the hell was that? The kid recognized this girl when she took off her hood as Lee So-yeon. She couldn't stand it after all and came over. The girl exclaimed that she had come to save him and called him a yellow-haired anchovy. Lee So-yeon asked Kim if he was done and called him home. After all, his sister would be very worried. Do-hyun exclaimed that it was time for the outsiders to get the hell out of here. Why should that be the end of it? The fight had just started. The girl looked menacingly at the boy and said that she had made up her mind. She didn't care what he thought. If he liked fighting so much, let him fight her. She was ready for such a fight. But if he loses, he will sincerely apologize to the yellow anchovy and won't be caught by them again. Do-hyun immediately agreed. He replied that if the girl lost, he would just stand quietly to the side and watch. That's what they agreed. The guy exclaimed that she would watch his friend get it from him until she died. Here the girl prepared for the attack. She got into a fighting stance on her strong, muscular legs, whereupon the girl lifted her foot up so sharply that the shoe flew off her foot. Kim Woo-jun opened his mouth in surprise. He was just marveling at such a leg kick. The girl's opponent immediately fell to the floor face down, just from one blow. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that they were definitely done now. She called the boy home. Then a slipper landed on her head. Kim Woo-jun couldn't understand what it was. He got hit so many times that he got a concussion and he must be glitching. She dealt with the monster in one blow. Lee So-yeon said that her clothes were soaked. It's just as easy to get sick. Kim Woo-jun realized that the real monster was Lee So-yeon. The girl exclaimed, calling him a jerk, that she had saved him and he was calling her names. He has absolutely no idea how to be grateful. That's when the kid opened his mouth and warned the girl that the opponent was behind her. He didn't have time to tell Lee So-yeon to be careful. Do-hyun came up from behind and pushed the girl behind her head, after which he laughed. He called the girl really crazy. He really thought he was done. Do-hyun explained that he wasn't dead yet and asked the girl to attack him. Kim Woo-jun asked what he was carrying. He asked her to leave her alone. He said he wanted to fight with him and to keep his attention on him. Do-hyun exclaimed that he had lost interest in him. He doesn't care about him at all right now. The real enemy is right in front of him. He said he didn't want to fight. Now he doesn't want to fight either. He doesn't want to fight such a weakling of the level of middle school neighborhood bullies. Lee. So-yeon exclaimed that he would have to apologize for those words as well. The girl thought that was very strange. She definitely hit with force to end him in one blow, and he turned out to be very strong. Lee So-yeon decided to probe this opponent further. She realized that with this guy she needed to put more force into it, so she got ready to attack. Do-hyun was very happy to have such a strong opponent. He liked to fight strong people, not weaklings. And so the girl turned around and hit the guy in the stomach with a powerful leg kick. When her foot was near the kid's stomach, he suddenly grabbed her. He held the girl's leg with one hand and clenched his other hand into a fist to strike. There was some kind of powerful sound. Sparks flew around, a loud whoosh of impact. The girl tried to twist away. With a deft body movement, she tried to kick the guy's other foot off the ground while he held her leg, whereupon the girl got down on all fours in one piece. But of course she was very surprised. This guy was a real monster. He accelerated and approached the girl. She put her foot forward, and he tried to hit her from the head. She dodged, of course, and got back on her feet. The girl was getting annoyed with the tenacity of this opponent. She grinned, shifting her eyebrows to her nose. She bounced back up firmly on her feet. Do-hyun clenched his fists again and began to approach the girl. He hit as hard as he could but hit the wall, right next to Lee So-yeon's head. While his fist stopped on the wall, she grabbed his pecs and tried to perform a hold. The girl started to twist the kid around and drove her knee right into his back. Kim Woo-jun wondered if that was even possible, although anything is possible here. After the girl's strongest blow, the boy bent over, clutching his hands to his chest. So-yeon started to attack the kid again, but he managed to grab her by the arm with one hand and her head with the other. He blocked all her blows, and the girl tried to grab his leg, but he kept his hand around the girl's neck. It was a very dangerous maneuver, but she didn't lose her powerful grip. She tried to roll the boy onto his back. She managed to do it, but Do-hyun grabbed her legs around her neck. She ended up on top of him. The girl thought she couldn't lose, and so by any means necessary she would protect the promise she had made. She asked the kid how much he didn't want to apologize. He replied that she had told him that he would not be allowed to appear in front of her again, but he wants to fight her many, many more times, because there are no other monsters like her in this world. The girl immediately exclaimed who he called a monster. Kim Woo-jun asked Lee So-yeon to get out of his grip sooner. Do-hyun mumbled that it was too late. The way he had grabbed her, the victory was now clearly his. The girl was curled up in his arms. She clenched her teeth trying to break free. Kim Woo-jun was really worried about her, since she was really at a disadvantage. Do-hyun grinned a vicious, snide smile. He clenched his powerful jaws and looked at the girl with a sly, cunning gaze. Lee So-yeon decided to take a different path. Since he wouldn't let go of her head, she got to her feet and started to turn the boy over. He laughed and called her crazy. Sweat was already trickling down his face. The girl lifted the boy up and wanted to throw him over herself. He wouldn't stop holding her head. The boy realized that this girl was a monster. She thought the same thing about him. They both flipped over and punched a whole hole in the wall. Kim Woo-jun looked inside and asked if So-yeon was okay. The girl was not going to give up. She got to her feet and tried to catch her breath. Kim Woo-jun was very excited and looked at her with a worried look. This was the first time Lee So-yeon was so tired in a fight. She rose to her feet and grabbed her head with her hand, after which the girl laughed and exclaimed that now he was really finished, so they could go home in peace. Let's go back a little bit. Lee. So-yeon asked Kim's friend Woo-jun what he wanted to tell her. The kid said it was about Woo-jun. She was upset the other day when he was rude to her. She took his side, though. Lee. So Yan replied that that's why his head was asking for flicks. She decided not to help him anymore. Suddenly he laughed and said he was a really annoying guy. He's also rude. Lee Seo-yan added that he was also a yellow-haired anchovy, but the friend began to explain that Kim Woo-jun was actually a kind-hearted guy. She had already heard that he had a troubled past. Right now he's just wandering and looking for his way. He hopes she won't think of him as a bad guy and take care of him. He is sure that the person he is now can be a pillar of support for Woo-jun. It was exactly her, Lee So-yan. The girl wondered why he thought that. He started to explain that Woo-jun is actually quite stroppy and doesn't have many friends. Everyone is wary of him and keeps their distance, but she, Seo-yan, gets close to a guy like that very quickly. Watching them joking with each other as equals and having fun, he realized that their relationship was different. Plus, she stepped forward and wanted to help Woo-jun. When An Do-hyun tried to provoke, she's definitely special. Right now, Woo-jun needs a strong person like her to confide in. He asked the girl to be a support for this kid as Nuna. Meanwhile, a guy who was walking around in a woman's uniform was sitting in front of some kind of journal, writing something down in it. He made some notes to himself. He glued the name sheets to the board in front of him. The first name was Sunbae. He kept making some drawings in his notebook. Second piece of paper. A man who likes to dress up as a girl. The third piece of paper was just hey. He taped a piece of paper to his forehead that said amateur dressed up as a girl. Lee So-yan was very surprised by this when she saw the kid and reached her hand towards his head. Didn't look at her with a strange look and asked to go out. She wondered if the 3-year-old didn't have to self-study at night. He's allowed to use the library alone. The kid explained to Lee Seo-yan that the teachers trust him. So how did she know that? The girl explained that she had asked around for Sunbae since 3rd year. He thought about the fact that 1st year is not intimidating at all, even people like Sunbae. The kid asked what she wanted and asked her to speak quickly. Lee So-yan asked if they knew that guy An Do-hyun. The kid replied that they were a little bit, so he might know where they can fight. Sunbae asked why she needed that information. She replied that it was to stop the fight, of course. The yellow-haired anchovy would be covered in wounds again. His sister would probably be worried. Sunbae asked if that was necessary. In their world, there are guys who only come to their senses after they've been crushed. Guys like Kim Woo-jun who believe that the world revolves around them because they're a little stronger than normal people. On the contrary, he sees this as an opportunity to change his childish mindset. Lee Seo-yan exclaimed that if she did that, she would defeat that guy, An Do-hyun, and she'll fix them. She just asked me to name the place. Basically, the girl interested him, if she wanted to stop the fight, but he wondered how she could do it. The girl apparently explained to him. Then she asked him if he would tell her where the fight would take place. And so after everything, Lee So-yan put her hands up and exclaimed that it was over. She asked the kid to go home. How can you continue to upset Nuna further? Kim Woo-jun asked why she came to help him, for the sake of a scum like him. The girl asked not to talk nonsense. What's wrong with him? Didn't he hit his head? His character had changed. He said it was true. That he's trash. I mean, she asked him once before if he wanted to fight her. That's right. He actually wanted to fight her. There's nothing more exhilarating than a fight with a strong man. But he started fighting because he couldn't bear to watch the scum bullying the weak. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that someone dear to him had died because of the collective bullying. He thought that everything at that time was fighting for that very reason. But without noticing, he was consumed by the heady feeling of fighting. My sister started drinking daily, although she never liked alcohol. Everyone thinks he's a bully. He probably looked just like the scum he hates so much. What would Hyun Seong-hyun think when he sees him now? He's so disgusting right now that he's ready to go crazy with self-loathing. The girl listened to him very attentively. She tried to understand him and to comfort him somehow. Afterwards, Lee So-yan said that he wasn't a bad guy at all. Kim Woo-jun held his head with his hand. She heard everything, and she knows what a scumbag he is. The girl exclaimed that she was not friends with the bad guys. He explained that he wanted to pick a fight even with her. The girl asked what of it. Even if he thinks he's bad and everyone sees him as a bully, she knows that he's actually a kind and sincere guy. At first, she'd wondered if he was weird, too. After all, he was always flirting with her, offering her strange competitions. But after spending time together, she realized he was the kind of man who couldn't pass a kitten in the rain, trying his best to protect people who are being hurt and harassed. He is a kind guy with a deep sense of altruism, only looking like a slacker at first glance. So don't hate yourself. Anyone can make mistakes. You just have to keep them in mind and keep looking for the right path. There's nothing wrong with that. So how about living a happy tale of his happy memories when he meets again in heaven with his dear one? I'm sure he wants to see him happy, not sad. She'll be his support so he won't be sad alone anymore. Kim Woo-jun asked why he was trying so hard for him. She asked what she meant by why. People who help and support each other. Isn't that what friends are supposed to be? The kid realized that this girl was strong both physically and mentally in everything. That's right. Maybe that's the kind of strong man he wanted to become. Kim Woo-jun called her a master. He wanted to become a person like that girl, Lee Seo-yeon, strong and confident. Meanwhile, Kim Woo-jun and Lee So-yeon were approaching a huge apartment building. The kid's sister was there. She asked why he wasn't answering his phone. He was probably fighting again. Lee So-yeon walked with her eyes closed, then mumbled that she hadn't looked at the password to his house. Is it okay to open her eyes now? He apologized for making her worry, and told his sister that he wouldn't fight anymore. When his sister came out to him, pointing her finger at Lee So-yeon, she inquired who it was behind him. Kim Woo-jun explained that it was his friend. The girl immediately said hello to her, and explained that the sister is younger than her. That's why it's necessary to address her as you. Out of nowhere, Lee Seo-yeon's brother came from behind them. A big, powerful man. They didn't expect to see him, and turning their heads, they all shouted in unison. When Kim Woo-jung's sister asked who it was behind him, the brother explained that it was his friend. The girl said hello to her. He asked them to speak to each other on a first-name basis, after which Lee So-yeon's brother suddenly appeared behind them. The bulky man stood behind them. They were scared out of their wits, and they all screamed with a loud shout. Lee Han-byul explained that he had already searched for Lee Seo-yeon. The girl suddenly turned around and punched her brother as hard as she could in the face. He flew out the door screaming. Then he said goodbye to everyone as he ran away. The girl asked how he had gotten here. The brother said that Dad asked her to find her and bring her home. The sister asked Kim Woo-jun if the girl was definitely his friend. Kim Woo-jun replied to his sister that this is indeed the case. That girl is his friend Lee So-yeon. When she came home, her father started shouting at her and asked her why she had come so late this time. She said that they were just out for a walk with Suki. Lee Han-byul said that he had seen her with the yellow-haired anchovy. Sister didn't expect him to give her up so quickly. Brother exclaimed that it was a great sight. The father realized she had lied to them. He asked the others if they thought she was bad. The father laughed and said that someone was asking for punishment. I wonder if he's thinking what the others are thinking. Really, we'll have to resort to this. Lee Seo-yeon was scared and wondered why, and there was a huge building in front of us. The high-rise building seemed to rise up to the heavens. Lee So-yeon stood there not realizing what was happening or what was in store for her. A big, pumped-up cat sat next to him. It was obvious that he was a member of their family. The cat started meowing very menacingly and cast his creepy cat stare right at everyone around him. The family exclaimed that this time, Seo-yeon was in charge of bathing, clawing, and even brushing Ronnie the cat's teeth. They all gave a friendly shout of hurrah. She didn't know that Mom was in charge of washing Ronnie. She always asked him to sit still. Well, that was under duress. And Dad is in charge of the haircut as well as brushing his teeth. He always said the cat must behave obediently. Obedience was also forced. Lee Han-byul took care of feeding the cat. He wished him a pleasant appetite. And what tasted good was also under compulsion. They explained that Seo-yeon was the one who brought Ronnie home, but they all take care of him. Mom explained that the cat is a member of their family, so they didn't say anything, but she lied to them, so she'd have to feel their hard work. She behaved very badly, didn't she? Lee Seo-yeon exclaimed to Lee Han-byul that she would finish him off. He wished her luck and slammed the door. The girl was left alone with her big, powerful cat. She threw a scornful glance at him, and she called Ronnie to go and wash with Nuna. The cat was getting ready to run. He was at the starting line. The girl asked what was wrong with him, and instantly grabbed the cat. There, Ronnie's a good cat, isn't he? The cat began to meow and squawk. She called him a lousy cat. How could he scratch her? But the cat was not a bad cat either. He started to get out and run away. Lee So-yeon asked her brother to catch him, but Lee Han-byul was watching something on TV and exclaimed that he was very busy right now. The cat ran away as if laughing, looking at the girl. The girl clutched at her brother's beard and asked him if anime was more important to him than her sister's request. Her brother laughed and replied that she was still asking about it. Anime, of course. When the anime ended, Lee So-yeon laughed and said that it was now bath time. The cat started meowing, the girl asking him not to run away. Lee Han-byul laughed at his sister. She asked him not to laugh, but rather to help her, and called the man not a brother, but a sadist. She asked him not to laugh, rather to help. The brother caught the cat, and the girl adjusted the water and said that if he jumped now, she would really scold him. The girl called the cat a good boy, and started feeling sorry for him, calling the cat poor Ronnie. The cat stood in front of them, looking at them with frightened eyes. It wasn't easy to do all the procedures on him. The girl was exhausted, As she fell to the floor, she threw her arms out to the sides and exclaimed that she was dying. It was really tiring. Does this little guy know how hard it is for him? The cat thought that the mood was ruined because of these little people. He decided he'd better go and have a sniff of valerian. It turns out everyone was working so hard and she didn't even know it. The girl repented of her behavior. Mom said that there was still some brushing and clawing left to do. She wished her daughter good luck. Lee Hanbiol started laughing as he knew what was waiting for his sister now. Lee Seo-yeon began to scream in terror as she fought with the cat. Meanwhile, Kim Woo-jun apologized to his sister for making her worry. He really isn't going to fight anymore. He promised his sister that from now on he would live right, and he would study. She was very surprised and asked what had happened to him. Why did it suddenly change by as much as 180 degrees? Kim Woo-jun replied that nothing had happened. It was just time. He explained that it was finally time to end the childish antics. Kim Woo-jun sat on the edge of his bed, thinking about something. He stared at the floor and closed his eyes, after which he opened them and stared at one point. The boy thought about his friend Lee So-yeon. He visualized her in front of his eyes. Kim Woo-jun immediately smiled slightly. He took a breath, thinking good thoughts about the girl. The boy collapsed on his couch, remembering the events that had happened to him. He suddenly jumped up and sat down on the couch, and he thought about a life of hard work. The kid's t-shirt said 8 a.m. wake-up call. The kid actually woke up so early that the most interesting thing was starting to do the house cleaning. After the boy vacuumed, he began to water the flowers. His sister watched him the whole time, wondering. She watched her brother, not realizing that this had happened to him. She stared at him with her mouth open. It's unrealistic to get used to it. Kim Woo-jun noticed that his sister freaks out even when he lives right. The t-shirt said, "Literature is everything." His sister said that she had plans for the evening anyway, so she told him to take care of dinner on his own. Kim Woo-jun asked why she was so dressed up. She must be seeing someone. The girl replied that she was with Kang Shi-yoon, asked him what kind of expression he had on his face. Or he doesn't like Shi-yoon. Kim Woo-jun mumbled that he didn't like it a bit. The sister exclaimed that she would tell her so. The kid asked her not to. She was just kidding. My brother asked me not to bring this girl home. But she turned in his direction and said nothing. And so the beautiful and lovely Shin appeared on the doorstep. As she called herself when she met her friend, she waved at Woo-jun and exclaimed that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. She heard about what she didn't like about him. Called him a lousy person. How many years have they known each other? She mumbled that he was upsetting Nuna. She'll have to push them around a bit and stay the night. The kid's t-shirt said, "Kang Shi-yoon, don't come." When asked what he said, the boy said he was very happy. Kang Shi-yoon was her sister's best friend, who they'd been friends with since middle school, the person who annoys him the most. She glanced in his direction. He asked what she was doing. The girl replied that she had come to borrow clothes from him. He exclaimed that she should ask her sister for clothes. Kang Shi-yoon replied that his sister's clothes were too small, so it's uncomfortable. She's a child's size. She's so clingy that she can't breathe. Kim Woo-jun took his clothes in his hand and handed them to the girl. He asked her to take it and leave. She began to change her clothes. He wondered what she was doing, changing clothes in front of him. He asked her to go change somewhere else. She asked him not to say such things in their relationship. Kim Woo-jun asked what it was she said. What other kind of relationship could they have? The girl replied that it was as special as a family. The boy looked at her with great surprise. He squeezed his hand. The sister asked her brother to pack up. He had decided to stop living like that. The kid had to unclench his fists. Kang Shi-yoon flopped down on his bed and exclaimed that it was very soft. He asked what she was doing and told her to get lost. She wanted to lie down. It won't wear out the bed. The girl wondered how he had become such a cold and rude guy. He used to be such a nice guy. She asked him to remember what it had been like in the past. When he was 12 years old, he was just a little boy. A girl came up to him calling him cute. She was 15 years old and asked if she could buy him a candy bar. She was ducking him, and she'd ask him to say Nuna to her. She laughed and said she seemed to just love kids and wondered if he was offended that she thought he was a child. She asked what was wrong with him. What's wrong with his head? The boy replied that he had dyed his hair. He was 15 years old at the time. Kang Shi-yoon pointed her finger at him and asked her friend to look at him. Her brother seems to be a bully. She was 18 years old. Kim Joo-yoon was also 18 years old. A friend exclaimed that it really doesn't look good on him. Come to think of it, that hair color looks just like her hair. So they have the same hair color. The girl said that and laughed again. Kim Woo-jun clenched his fist again, more than a little angry. But his sister took his hand and asked him to move past the subject. Kang Xiang mumbled that she didn't just come to borrow clothes. What did she want to say to him? The girl exclaimed that she had heard that he had decided to change. She does not know what the reason was. But looking at him, the girl laughed and said that she was happy about it. He can't even imagine how his sister Ju-Yun was worried about him. In fact, every time they met for a drink, she read all about him. She must have been worried about a lot of things. The only younger brother lived like this. But she looks at him today and sees that he looks so much better already. Like he's more relaxed. But she's a little worried about this sudden change. Maybe he's adopted some strange faith. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that she was drunk and talking nonsense. When he went to high school, he met a friend, and her behavior changed him. Sure, sometimes she acts like a fool, but now he wants to be a strong person like her. A strong man who has not only physical strength, but also moral strength, enough to support the people he cares about. Kang Xiong smiled and replied to the kid that he was also becoming an adult. She's glad he's looking better. She advised to treat this friend well and give him something to eat, and she in turn went to bed. Kim Woo-jun crossed his arms on his chest and said that if you think about it, Lee So-yeon saved him, and he didn't even thank her properly. Who could she possibly like? An unusual girl like her. The kid walked outside with his backpack behind him. He kept thinking about it. Meanwhile, Lee So-yeon was sitting on a chair with her hands on the table. She held onto it with her hands, breathing heavily. Kim Woo-jun approached the girl and said hello to the master. He explained that from now on, he intends to take her as an example as a master. That's why he uses that address. She asked what it was about him. It was too awkward for her and asked him to stop. He inquired if she wasn't feeling well. Lee So-yeon replied that she wasn't. She's just hot. She can't stand the heat well. She wants to eat something cold. Kim Woo-jun asked the girl to go with him and eat bingsu. It is a dessert that is crushed ice with various additives such as milk, nuts, syrups, ice cream, or fruit. The girl agreed, but only after school. Kim Woo-jun said he was buying, a thank you for his recent help. His sister's friend had advised him to treat his girlfriend to something for a reason, so the kid invited the girl to eat bingsu together. After school, Kim Woo-jun said he was giving her a treat, thanking him for his recent help. She looked at him very surprised. Of course she said yes. Apparently it was the first time he had asked her out. Suddenly the girl jumped up and hit the boy with her fist. She asked him not to address her as you. He immediately fended off the girl's blow, surprised by her attack on him. It's the leader of the first year, Kim Woo-jun. They said not to make eye contact with him. He's a scary guy. We heard he got into a fight with the leader of the Kaimans this time. According to the rumors, they were both beaten up pretty badly. So Anyi Kim Woo-jun fought as equals. They say someone intervened right in the middle of the fight and stopped the fight. Who could it have been? Who would intervene when those two are fighting? It's probably just a stupid rumor. Kim Woo-jun asked the master if she had chosen which bingsu she was going to eat. The girl closed her eyes and roared. There were people around asking what that just was. Kim Woo-jun used respectful address and called her master. Lee So-yeon grabbed the kid's hand again, squeezing it as hard as she could. She started dragging him somewhere behind her and asked him to follow her immediately. The girl dragged him down the corridor somewhere around the corner. The rest of the guys were watching the scene. The friends wondered what this situation was all about. They already have a nickname for each other. Kim Woo-jun asked the girl what she was doing. Lee So-yeon replied that she was the one who wanted to ask what he was doing. If he's the head of the school, suddenly starts calling her master, it will attract everyone's attention. Does he really want to die? Kim Woo-jun explains that he can't address master on a first-name basis. She's the person he respects the most, after all. Lee So-yeon seemed like this guy had become even more annoying than he was before. The girl asked the yellow-haired anchovy how about it then, and explained that she was still 16 years old, therefore the title of master is a bit onerous, and asked what about the secret relationship between apprentice and master. She crossed her arms over her chest and closed her eyes as she asked the question. The boy was very surprised at this. He opened his mouth in surprise, not understanding what the girl meant about the secret relationship between the apprentice and the master. She mumbled that if he agreed to that condition, and on the officially accept him as her apprentice, take responsibility and train him. Kim Woo-jun understood. If that's the master's wish, secret relationships are also cool in their own way. And here we are in front of the school building. The day of school had already come to an end. We could only hear the cries that it was finally time to go home. Kim Woo-jun called out to the master to follow him. Afterward, he remembered that she had asked him not to speak like that in front of everyone. He exclaimed that he had simply forgotten. Lee So-yeon asked him not to go back to his own way of thinking and to forget about the student-master relationship. The boy said that he had indeed forgotten. The friends could not understand what had happened between the two of them. They were behaving very strangely. Suddenly, Lee Seo-yeon and her friend opened their mouths and looked at Kim Woo-jun strangely. The kid wondered what was wrong with them. Do-hyun stood behind him with his hands in his pockets. Kim Woo-jun was immediately wary, throwing a glance at the guy. He saw Ahn Do-hyun in front of him and asked why this guy was here. No one expected him to be here. Kim Woo-jun called him crazy. He asked why he came to their class, if he was going to take revenge. Lee. So-yeon exclaimed that she told him to stay out of their sight. Does he really want her to punish him again? Then the kid, closing his eyes, asked them to relax. He explained that he didn't come here to fight. He turned to Kim Woo-jun. The boy was immediately wary, but he turned toward Do-hyun. He in turn knelt down before him and put his head down. Then he began to say to Kim Woo-jun on his knees, for digging up and using his painful past to pick fights, for humiliating and comparing him to scum because of his selfishness. For all of this, he sincerely apologizes to him. They were very much surprised that this kid came to ask for forgiveness. Kim Woo-jun listened to him and asked who he heard about Hyun Seong-hyun from. He asked him, not about to leave without a clear, crisp answer from the boy. Do-hyun said he'd lost. He said he would only tell him if he defeated him. Kim Woo-jun took a breath and culturedly replied that he remembered everything perfectly. Do-hyun said that the public promises he made in the fight he's keeping by all means, but as an apology, he can say at least this. The one who told him his secret was a student at their school. That's the clue Do-hyun gave to Kim Woo-jun. He asked her to keep looking for it. Meanwhile, a vase of delicious food appeared in front of the girl. She started filming it on her phone while licking her eyes. Lee Seo-yeon decided to take a picture first. Kim Woo-jun had already forked into this delicious dessert. Breaking it apart a bit, the girl exclaimed what was he doing. He tilted his head and apologized. She said it's gone, but is he okay? He's probably not feeling too good. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that she should have made him tell everything. Kim Woo-jun replied that it was fine. Even if it was possible to find out, the feeling would still remain unpleasant. Gradually, he'll find out about everything, because if someone starts going around talking about Hyung at school, it'll only piss him off more. Lee So-yeon said that if there was anything she could do to help, then let her speak. The master would take care of everything. The boy laughed and remarked that it was good that he had a master. The girl remembered that they were not even subscribed to each other in Insta, so she asked what his nickname was. Kim Woo-jun asked what that Insta was. Lee So-yeon realized that he was a primal person. Didn't he even have an Insta in middle school? Kim Woo-jun replied that he was just busy fighting. The girl called him a fool, and I asked for the phone. She mumbled that it would be right away. The boy asked her to eat a binsu first, so it wouldn't melt. But she exclaimed that it should be made right away since it was brought up, and a profile picture is required. She asked him to smile, started taking pictures of the kid with the dessert. She immediately smiled and laughed and exclaimed that it turned out to be a cute photo. In the picture, he was red with a strange expression on his face, and he wasn't smiling in the slightest. She thought the picture came out pretty cute. The sister asked Kim Woo-jun what he was doing and asked him to put a spoon at least. He replied that he would answer the message first. She was very surprised that he had an Insta. The guy explained that just yesterday. Sister wondered what the profile picture was about, noticed he looked like a fool. She asked if it was a girl who took his picture. Kim Woo-jun said it was a girl. Then she asked if they were dating. He replied that he didn't, and asked me to drive this topic by, does his picture really look dopey? The kid thought about what Lee So-yeon had said to the contrary, that the photo was really cute. The sister looked at her brother with even more amazement. She had never seen her brother like this. What had happened to him lately? The girl came closer to him and put her hand on his forehead. Kim Woo-jun said that he was fine. Meanwhile, the school was telling the kids that there would be a sports competition very soon. It was necessary to choose a uniform for the class. One of them decided to show the options. If you like something, you should say. The guys started yelling that they wanted the soccer players' uniforms, but they were divided. The others shouted that they wanted something else. The girls noticed the military uniform. They exclaimed that it was very beautiful. They voted in favor of the military uniform, but the guys didn't agree with them, because soon they'd actually have to wear it. Police uniforms are okay too. Everyone said their choices. Kim Woo-jun thought about how it was too noisy. What's all this commotion? He asked to choose whatever he wanted already. Lee. So-yeon asked the yellow-haired anchovy man if the police officers' uniforms were beautiful. Kim Woo-jun replied that the master had excellent taste. He was just thinking the same thing. The headmaster said that the 4th grade had already scored her. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed how could they do that? He asked them to tell them to change their choices. The headmaster replied that it was already violence. They also need to decide who will participate in which competition. Tug of war is for the whole class. And for the rest, when he calls out a discipline, you have to raise your hands. There were cheers from all sides who chose soccer, who wanted basketball. And so the day of the sports competition came. All the students were already in formation, preparing to participate. A friend approached Ujun and asked if he would be applying sunscreen. Kim thanked him and began applying sunscreen to his face. Lee. So-yeon put her hands up and exclaimed that they had put on their uniforms. Kim Woo-jun noticed that the master had made ponytails. No wonder she's pretending to be cute. They were all in the same uniform. It was really cute. The guys started taking pictures. So we got a funny picture of everyone together. Everyone was smiling except Kim Woo-jun. The girl said she's going to post it on Insta later. She'll tag them all. Kim Woo-jun created an account but didn't sign up with a comrade. He asked for the sunscreen to be given away immediately. Kim Woo-jun immediately apologized. The girl was wearing a police uniform. She approached Mr. Kim Woo-jun explaining that he had been arrested. Just like that, for no reason. Lee So-yeon noticed that Se had a really nice uniform. She wanted to wear a policewoman's uniform too. Seha noticed that Seo-yeon looked cute too, especially her ponytails. Kim Woo-jun asked the girl to undo the handcuffs as soon as possible. She had forgotten that she had unlocked them while they were talking. The girl started to undo the handcuffs, but she failed. They just broke. Someone nearby exclaimed that she had that energy of someone who looks like she's good at everything but is actually clumsy. The boys were already being assembled by their classes. Everyone moved each student to his or her own. Kim Woo-jun and Seha didn't have the best picture. They stood handcuffed to each other. Everyone around me laughed. The toy handcuffs broke. They were envious to death. Just then, Seo-yeon exclaimed that she would help them right away. The girl ran to help. Then, with a flick of her hand, she broke the cuffs. They just fell apart on Seha's arm. Everyone laughed even harder. After all, the handcuffs easily came undone, shattering into pieces. Lee Seo-yeon is really good. Before the sports competition begins, the school principal gives a speech of instruction. The children were very bored. But the man said to the teachers, "I want these lousy kids grabbed and sent to his office. There's a sparring session waiting for them there." This was a speech of instruction from the headmaster. After that, the schedule of the competition was announced. The soccer team wanted to play soccer as soon as possible. There was talk about what prizes there would be for winning. Kim Woo-jun exclaimed that he had never lost at a sports competition. Besides, there's Master Seo-yeon in their class. First place is in their pocket. Kim's friends said that they would beat everyone. Kim Woo-jun glanced at the guy who came up to them. He explained that it was water for their class. They can hand out their own. He's Jae-hyun from class 5. He asked if he was talking to Kim Woo-jung, 3rd grade. He suggested we work together properly. Kim Woo-jun took the box of water from him and asked if they were in on it. The boy replied that of course he would. They clenched their fists and wished each other luck. Kim Woo-jun's gaze fell somewhere to the side. He looked at his friend. I was about to call the master, but he remembered to call her Seo-yeon. He took water out of the box and handed it to the girl. The boy explained that he had chosen the coolest one for her. Lee Seo-young immediately thanked the boy. Seha said she envies their class. They have Woo-jun and Seo-yeon. Lee So-yeon exclaimed that the first place was theirs. Seha said that their class will also try their best. If they underestimate them, they will be humiliated. Will the monster of their class let this happen? A monster named Seo-yeon. The girl wondered why she was the monster. A girl with red hair, Jong Sabing, came up to them. She said that the first place will go to their 4th grade class. Don't get cocky. Whether Lee So-yeon is there or the first-year leader, they have nothing to fear. It's all about unity and cooperation. Sabin clutched her stomach sharply with her hands and turned pale. A trickle of sweat ran down her face. After she bent down, the girl fell to the ground face down. They began to call out to her, but Lee So-yeon laughed and exclaimed that there was nothing special about 4th grade. And so the competition began. First on the list was the tug of war. There was the sound of a gun, and the tug of war began. Everyone immediately rushed in their own direction. Lee So-yeon tensed up very hard before pulling the rope sharply. She clenched her jaws, and with one mighty tug, the string of classmates nearly fell to the ground so quickly tugged by the rope. And here was the 3rd class victory. Sabin exclaimed that this round was not valid. Everyone noticed that the losers were talking too much. The next discipline was cockfighting. The contestants got ready, and so the next stage of the competition had already begun. With 2 hands they held one leg, and they were closing in on each other. Somebody was too weak. That team or the other team. The girl who wanted to drag Lee So-yeon into the fitness club said that only that girl could be her competitor after all. She pointed her finger at Lee So-yeon and asked her to come out. She wanted to have a round with her, but the girl replied that they were on the same team as her. odd classes on the black team, but she wouldn't stop. I don't know where that came from. She offered to fight her to the death. Lee So-yeon thought that there were no rules for this girl.